Chapter 957. True Spirit Wonderland was the oldest and most important inheritance of Jinling. Jinling didn't have enough resources to form a huge inheritance like the Yingtian sect, so most of Jinling's important inheritance was concentrated in True Spirit Wonderland. Jade Cave Wonderland was different from Jade Cave Wonderland. Most of the inheritance in Jade Cave Wonderland was left behind by Jinling's core forging cultivators. Jinling's Dharma Laozu would choose to return to after their lifespans were exhausted. Therefore, True Spirit Wonderland was not only the inheritance of Jinling, but also the burial place of Jinling's Dharma Laozu. Outside True Spirit Wonderland, Lu Tianling rushed over after seeing Lu Ping enter Winter. "Uncle, did he go in?" Tianxiang nodded and said, "He went in. Let's stay quiet for a while. Have you rearranged the spies in Songhai sect and Liao family island?" Tianling sighed and said, "I'm already making arrangements. However, I don't know how long it will take for me to become the Patriarch's guest hall sweeper and a Dharma idol attendant again." Tianxiang's countenance didn't change as he replied, "For a sect to rise up, there would naturally be sacrifices. Which sect didn't have a path of bloodshed? It's just that some of them were in the light, while others were in the dark. Even if those in the light died in battle, their names would be passed down through the generations. But for those in the dark, even if they accomplished great merits, they could only remain nameless. In fact, even if they died, they could only become a wandering ghost, with no true identity." Tianxiang paused and seemed to feel that this topic was too heavy, so he said, "The Dark Hall has always been under the control of Xianyin. Now that you are the head of the sect, it's unclear who is right and who is wrong. It's just that there is no other suitable person in the sect. Tianfeng is too wild, Tianlin is too lazy, Tianqin is too arrogant, Tianshan is too righteous, Tiancheng is too rough, Tianshu is originally suitable, but he has great ambition but little talent." Tianling pondered for a moment and said, "Martial uncle, perhaps you should consider the third-generation disciples. Nowadays, many of the third-generation disciples are gradually growing up. There are nearly 20 of them who have advanced to the late stage of the core forging realm. They should be given more responsibilities." Tianxiang's eyes brightened. "Oh, you have a suitable candidate in mind?" Tianling hesitated for a moment before saying, "Currently, among the third-generation disciples of our sect, other than Lu Ping, only Brother Xianyin's disciple, Yin Xianchu, has advanced to the 9th stage of core forging. His level of practice is sufficient, and he has also gone through many battles, so his level of killing is sufficient as well. He has been on the run for many years in the North Sea, and even Dharma adepts are unable to catch him. His intelligence is sufficient as well." Celestial Phenomenon Laozu stretched out his hand to stop Celestial Phenomenon Laozu from speaking. "Can he return now?" The heavenly spirit was somewhat unwilling as she said, "But this child still has to come back in the end. Junior brother Xian Yin's lineage can't be severed from the sect just like that." Celestial Phenomenon Laozu did not dwell on this issue any longer. Instead, he changed the topic and asked, "What about the mixed mineral veins in the northwest? Xinling sect and Songhai sect are still quarreling. There have been several conflicts between the disciples of both sects, but the high-level practitioners have a tacit understanding and have not taken any action. There are no major casualties on either side. I think both sides are restraining themselves." Celestial Phenomenon nodded and said, "Looks like it's time for our sect to take action. It took so much effort to muddy the waters. How can we let them clear it up so quickly? It is said that the mixed mineral veins contain several types of extremely rare spiritual materials, which are urgently needed for the repair of the treasure ship. Immediately unite with the other sects to pressure the two sects to share the profits. I think the other sects can't wait any longer. This is also a way to alleviate our current situation of being isolated." Tianling Laozu nodded, but still said, "Won't this make the two sects feel that this was originally a trap of our sect, and now we have finally jumped out?" Celestial Phenomenon shook his head and said, "Whether we jump out or not will be suspected, but it is normal for us to jump out. If we don't jump out to fight for it, they will be able to confirm it." A few days later, Jinling joined forces with the Hai Yin sect, Shui Yin Pavilion, and a few other sects to the Northwest Sea. They requested the Songhai sect and Xianling sect to open up the mining of the mixed mineral veins and share the profits. After a series of secret games, Xianling sect, due to the death of Lu Shuheng Laozu and the support of the Crystal Palace, finally obtained a 20% share of the entire spiritual veins. Jinling and the Songhai sect obtained a total of 30%. The other 6 sects divided the remaining 30%, and the remaining 20% was obtained by the 12 small sects who rushed over after hearing the news. This time, it seemed that Xianling sect was the final winner, but Xianling sect did not feel happy at all. Originally, the entire spiritual veins belonged to Xianling sect, but now, not only did they lose a Dharma adept, they only obtained a fifth of the spiritual veins. At least from Xianling sect's point of view, they were the ones who suffered the greatest loss this time. After Jinling joined forces with the other sects, the relationship between them and each other had eased. This was especially so during the crucial moment when the Crystal Palace adept Song Shiwei suddenly appeared to support Xianling sect. This caused the sects in the North Sea to be on high alert. This alertness undoubtedly made the sects worry that Jinling would become the next failing sect, and they were also worried that the Crystal Palace would fully intervene in the North Sea dispute. Compared to the potential threat of Jinling's rise, the Crystal Palace was the real threat that they had to face first. In the true spirit grotto heaven, Lu Ping walked casually. From time to time, he could see tombstones hidden in a patch of green. On the tombstones, Laozu's name and life story were engraved. Every time Lu Ping came across a tombstone, he would stop and read the detailed information about Laozu. This information often recorded the changes in the North Sea's cultivation world over the past tens of thousands of years. If he could read all the tombstones of the Dharma adepts in the true spirit grotto heaven, it would be a very detailed history of the North Sea's cultivation world. Along the way, Lu Ping saw many treasures, including some that tempted Laozu. However, Lu Ping could only choose one. Unfortunately, after comparing them, Lu Ping felt that these treasures were not his fortuitous encounters. When celestial phenomenon Laozu entered the true spirit grotto heaven, he had made it clear that the treasures he chose depended on his fortuitous encounters. Even so, Lu Ping at least learned a lot about the secrets of the North Sea's cultivation world over the past tens of thousands of years while he was admiring the engravings on each tombstone. In this true spirit grotto heaven, apart from some inheritance and treasures that were hidden in some mysterious places, in front of every tombstone, there would be one or more treasures that were used by the ancestor when he was still alive. This was also a rule that Jinling's sect had followed for generations. Before each Laozu passed away, he would bury at least one treasure that he had used when he was alive. This was to leave something useful for the descendants of Jinling. In the future, when Jinling encountered danger, these buried treasures might be the key to saving the situation. Although Lu Ping walked along the way, he did not touch any of the treasures placed in front of the tombstone. These things could be said to be the last resort of Jinling and the last contribution that Laozu left for Jinling. Although some of the treasures were not precious, they could not be chosen by greed. This was because Lu Ping knew that he would not be able to transform into a spirit like the only great Ginseng Laozu in the history of Jinling. In the future, he would also have to leave a treasure in front of his tombstone. Putting himself in Lu Ping's shoes, Lu Ping did not want the painstaking efforts that he had left for his descendants to be wasted because of greed. Lu Ping stood in the middle of the cave and slowly closed his eyes. His powerful divine telekinesis swept in all directions like flowing mercury. In Lu Ping's divine telekinesis, almost everything in the cave could be seen. Although the tombstones in the cave looked unusually messy in the beginning, as if they were just places with decent scenery in the cave, in Lu Ping's divine telekinesis, these tombstones that belonged to Laozu, the manifestation of Jinling, had formed an extremely exquisite formation. Each tombstone was an extremely important node in this formation. In the perception of Lu Ping's divine telekinesis, there was a ball of essence condensed on top of each tombstone. These hundreds of balls of essence were connected according to the formation, causing the entire formation to look like a ferocious beast that was ready to attack. Once the time was right, the formation would be activated, and it would definitely unleash an earth-shattering power. Every ball of essence on the tombstones was condensed from the last essence of Laozu, the manifestation of Dharma, who had passed away in a sitting posture. This ball of essence was preserved through the formation. Once it exploded, the entire cave would definitely collapse. Therefore, this was also prepared as a last resort for Jinling. Originally, this formation would only be activated when Jinling encountered the most critical moment. However, just as Lu Ping's divine telekinesis reached its limit, the entire formation suddenly shook, and then immediately returned to normal. The entire formation shook for too short a time, causing Lu Ping to think that his divine telekinesis was momentarily dazed. However, just as Lu Ping was about to retract his divine telekinesis, the entire cave shook again. This time, the shaking was even more intense, but it also allowed Lu Ping to clearly feel that it was not the cave that was shaking. Instead, the entire formation seemed to have been triggered, which was why Lu Ping felt as if the entire world was shaking. However, how could the formation formed by the tombstones be triggered? Lu Ping was already wondering. However, at this moment, the entire formation began to shake for the third time. This time, almost every tombstone was shaking violently. Under Lu Ping's fearful perception, the balls of essence that had condensed above the tombstones were separated from each ball of essence. Then, they followed an invisible line in the sky and condensed above the formation above the formation. More than 100 balls of essence gathered together and exploded with a strong light in the sky above the cave. A vast aura rushed towards Lu Ping. This aura was all too familiar to Lu Ping. After the light in the center of the cave dissipated, a silver-white bead flew directly towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping opened his palm, and the silver bead landed in Lu Ping's hand with a gentle aura. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Could this be the opportunity for him to enter the true spirit cave? Chapter 958. This silver pearl was formed from the last essence left behind by the ancestors of Jinling, and was then condensed by this amazing formation. It was like a treasure that had been refined using special methods, and it contained the pure yang qi that Lu Ping was very familiar with. Although most of the ancestors of Jinling who were buried in the hundreds of tombstones in this cave were at the early Dharma stage, this did not stop them from using various methods to cultivate and nurture a stream of pure yang qi in order to break through the thunder trial of the mid-Dharma stage. Although this stream of pure yang qi was ultimately unable to help them pass through the thunder trial, they still left this purest stream of pure yang qi behind so that their descendants could benefit from it. Furthermore, not all of these Laozu who had passed away were early Dharma adepts. Although there were very few mid-Dharma adepts and even late Dharma adepts, the pure yang qi within the essence left behind by these Laozu who had gone through the thunder trial was far beyond that of early Dharma adepts. Although this pure yang qi was extremely small and weak, and could not even compare to the pure yang qi that Lu Ping had cultivated and absorbed multiple times when he was still at the core forging stage, when all this pure yang qi was gathered together, the pure yang qi within the pure yang pearl made Lu Ping's heart skip a beat. Just as the formation formed by the hundreds of tombstones in the true spirit cave was activated by Lu Ping's divine will, on the top of Tianling Mountain, as the true guardian of the true spirit cave, celestial phenomenon Laozu suddenly woke up. The 100 ancestors cry. He had actually touched the spirits of the ancestors of Jinling. What a great blessing! The only question was what kind of treasure this kid would obtain from it. Just as Lu Ping was wondering what to do with the pure yang pearl, a small hand suddenly reached out from Lu Ping's back and grabbed the pure yang pearl in Lu Ping's palm. Lu Ping turned around and saw Linglong's big watery eyes staring at Lu Ping's palm. Her chubby little mouth was biting the fingers of her other hand, and her delicious saliva was still flowing down. Her other hand was timidly trying to grab the pure yang pearl in Lu Ping's palm. Just as Linglong's little hand was about to grab the pure yang pearl, he heard Linglong suddenly cry out in pain. Ouch! A majestic rock descended from the sky. Its two claws grabbed onto Linglong's two pigtails and pulled it back with all its might. It almost pulled Linglong on her butt. Stinky bird. You actually dared to take advantage of me when I was unprepared. Linglong opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of saliva. The sky full of spiritual rain drenched the rock. The rock flapped its wings and was about to dive down towards the pure yang pearl in Lu Ping's hand. However, the sky full of spiritual rain made the rock's wings heavy. It wanted to shake off the raindrops on its body, but it couldn't do so. This dive did not land on Lu Ping's palm and instead smashed into the ground, making it look extremely miserable and wailing. Lu Ping looked at Linglong's saliva dripping down and now such a big mouthful of spiritual rain. His heart felt like it was cutting a piece of meat. It was extremely regretful. These were all top-notch treasures. Whether it was the saliva or the spiritual rain, Linglong had swallowed countless spiritual liquids and spiritual wines that Lu Ping had concocted for her over the years and had been nurtured in the spiritual veins several times. Not to mention the tears in her mouth. Even if Linglong peed, it would be an extremely impressive spiritual material in the eyes of many alchemists in the cultivation world. Naturally, Lu Ping would not use these spiritual materials like saliva, but if these things did not overflow from Linglong's body and were nurtured in large spiritual veins, or even giant spiritual veins for several years, then it might be a drop or several drops of spiritual materials above the middle grade of heaven stage or above. Lu Ping was about to open his mouth to reprimand these two lawless guys, but suddenly a flash of lightning flashed in front of his eyes. Lu Ping turned around and saw that the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash was like a thievish thief. Taking advantage of the time when Linglong and the Golden Rock were fighting each other, it rushed towards the pure young pearl. Among all of Lu Ping's magic treasures, although the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash was not the highest quality, it was unintentionally the most mischievous and the most cunning. Although the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash had not yet condensed the seventh spirit cultivation treasure restriction, its spirituality was almost only below that of Linglong's wine cauldron and the cloud sail among all of Lu Ping's magic treasures. However, although the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash was cunning, it did not mean that it always succeeded. Puff! The Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash was knocked back, and a layer of black water hung down, blocking the pure young pearl behind it. A small flag fluttered in the wind, making a fluttering sound. Clang! The Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash was like a frightened rabbit, and all of a sudden, it scurried back. The black profound flag swayed a bit, and gradually withdrew the black light curtain. In front of the pure young pearl, the thin water-flowing sword harmony slashed horizontally. In terms of who was the fiercest, it was still this pair of flying swords. However, this pair of flying swords was not the final victor. A silver light covered the flying swords, and although the two flying swords struggled to break free, they were firmly fixed in midair. A white jade lotus diagram slowly bloomed, and the 12 gentian pearls completely absorbed the pure young pearl into the gentian great array according to the position of the diagram. But in terms of who was the most powerful, it was still this group of people fighting. Even Linglong and the Golden Rock were blocked outside by them, unable to advance an inch. Lu Ping, who was watching the battle of the magic weapons with interest, finally satisfied his curiosity. He reached out and patted his chest, and a bluish-purple cloud rose from behind Lu Ping. The Dragon Law idol shuttled back and forth in the cloud, and from time to time revealed scales and claws, giving the feeling of a divine dragon showing its head but not its tail. However, this was already enough. The moment the Dragon Law idol appeared, Linglong grabbed the wine cauldron and put herself in it from top to bottom. The Golden Rock turned into a multicolored auspicious cloud, as if to flatter the Dragon Law idol, making the Dragon Law idol look even more sacred. If the artifact spirit of this Thunder Tribulation spirit treasure was already like this, then the other mystic treasures were even more so. The Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash flashed with lightning and was about to flee. But from the cloud where the Dharma Dragon was, an even more powerful lightning struck down from the sky. The Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash trembled for a moment before it staggered and flew into the purplish-blue cloud. Lu Ping couldn't help but feel a sense of heroism from the calabash, which made him laugh. Just as the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash flew to the edge of the cloud and seemed to be hesitating whether to enter or not, a golden dragon claw stretched out from the cloud and grabbed the Seven Treasures Thunder Calabash. Immediately after, the entire cloud and mist flashed with various colors of lightning, and a joyful dragon roar came from the cloud and mist. This was clearly not the first time this kind of game had happened, and Lu Ping had long since become accustomed to it. When he looked again, the thin water-flowing sword had already hidden to the side, and the water control flag's pole was inserted into the ground. The Life Gentian formation had also released the seal on the pure young pearl. From afar, it looked like the Dragon Law idol wanted to use the pure young pearl to protect it. The dragon claw flicked out again, and the 7 treasures thunder calabash was thrown out. Then, the cloud and mist rolled, and a huge dragon head emerged from within. It looked at the pure young pearl, and then it opened its mouth and sucked. The pearl slowly rose into the air and flew towards the Dragon Law idol's mouth. However, just as the pure young pearl was about to fall into the Dragon Law idol's mouth, at this moment, the pure young pearl seemed to realize that something was wrong. The pearl moved, in the direction of the Dragon Law idol's mouth was suddenly deviated, and it went around the side of the Dragon Law idol's mouth. The Dragon Law idol turned around and pounced towards the pure young pearl, and its golden body suddenly lit up more than half of the cloud and mist. However, this pearl seemed to have a high spirituality. It had just been formed by the formation, and its spirituality was still in a state of confusion. Now that it was about to be swallowed by the Dragon Law idol, its spirituality was immediately stimulated, and it began to flee in all directions. This pearl had a great attraction to the Dragon Law idol, and it was precisely because of this that Lu Ping summoned the Dragon Law idol from the heart space. The Dharma form of dragon had also instinctively realized this. Even without Lu Ping's deliberate command, it had already chased after the bead from head to tail. The cloud and mist around it kept the Dragon Law idol hidden within, making it impossible for the pure young pearl to know where the Dragon Law idol would pounce from. Even so, the pure young pearl continued to circle around the avatar dragon with its agility. Lu Ping, who was watching from the side, was dumbfounded. Wasn't this a typical trick of a dragon playing with a pearl? But no matter how he looked at it, it looked more like a pearl playing with a dragon. The Dragon Law idol and the pure young pearl were having fun chasing each other in mid-air. Suddenly, Lu Ping felt his clothes being tugged by someone. When Lu Ping looked down, he just happened to see Linglong's pitiful little face. "Master, Linglong wants that pearl. As long as it's 1/3, no, half of it." Linglong is confident that she can survive the second lightning tribulation and become a second tribulation spiritual treasure. As soon as Linglong's voice fell, the magic cloud that had been thrown off by the Dragon Law idol turned back into a golden rock. It flapped its wings and landed on Lu Ping's shoulder, saying, "Master, the golden rock doesn't need half. Just 1/3 will be enough to survive the lightning tribulation. The rest can be used by Master." When Linglong heard this, she immediately became angry and said, "Stupid bird, you are talking nonsense. Your aptitude is not as good as mine. You think you can survive the second lightning tribulation with just 1/3 of the pearl's pure yang qi? When the time comes, it's a small matter if you are struck to death by lightning, but it will be a pity to lose Master's pure yang qi." When the golden rock heard this, all the feathers on its body stood up. It said, "I am a great rock spiritual treasure. How can I not be as good as the pure yang qi that Master obtained by chance?" When the two spiritual treasures quarreled, the other magic treasures that were originally ready to move could not speak. However, Lu Ping could also feel the spiritual nature of these magic treasures expressing their desire for pure yang qi. In particular, the 13 magic treasures gave Lu Ping a clearer feeling. Just when Lu Ping did not know how to deal with it, his body shook. When he looked up, he saw that the pure young pearl had finally been pressed under the claw of the Dragon Law idol. It then opened its mouth and with a gulp, swallowed the whole pure young pearl. Linglong and the golden rock suddenly went crazy. The other magic treasures seemed to be venting their dissatisfaction. The flying swords hummed, the formation map trembled, and the black flag made a sound. Only the 7 treasures thunder calabash, which was originally the most active, was suspended in the air like a good baby. After the Fa Xiang swallowed the pure young pearl, it looked at the mystic treasures on the ground proudly and roared at them. Then, Lu Ping's ears became quiet again. Chapter 959. Ever since the Great War of Frost Island and the Great War of the Deep Sea Demon region, although Amo Luo had not completely disappeared from the North Sea, his momentum was much smaller than the previous great calamities. Many cultivators thought that this time, Mara's catastrophe might be because the North Sea was lucky not to have to deal with many Mara. After the two large-scale annihilation battles between humans and demons, Mara's momentum was naturally greatly reduced, and he was not too dangerous. This was also the first time that God had shown favor to the barren North Sea. Some cultivators thought that this was just a prelude to another large-scale outbreak of Mara's catastrophe, and that the previous small victory was nothing. Although there were all kinds of speculations, there was no doubt that the traces of Mara's large-scale appearance in the North Sea had indeed become very few. However, Luo's disappearance did not cause the entire North Sea to calm down. Instead, it became even more torturous. Humans and demons were fighting, and the giant whale demon clan and the primordial giant crocodile clan were also fighting within the demon clan. Among the humans, the 9 major sects were fighting like wildfire. Even forces from the East Sea and the Middle Earth joined in one after another. Since the Battle of Jinling's Water Sword Fairy perfected Lu Xianping on Frost Island 10 years ago, there had been very little news of him in the North Sea cultivation world. However, 5 years ago, someone had seen perfected Lu Xianping on Tianling Mountain, but since then, perfected Lu Xianping had disappeared again. It had been 10 years since then. There had long been rumors in the North Sea cultivation world that perfected Lu had gone into seclusion to break through to the Dharma phase as soon as possible, but most North Sea cultivators did not believe this rumor. This was because there were too many difficulties and obstacles during the breakthrough from the peak of the core forging realm to the Dharma phase. Regardless of how long it had been since perfected Lu Xianping had broken through the peak of the core forging realm, it seemed to be no more than 30 or 40 years. It was not easy to accumulate enough foundation to help him break through to the Dharma phase in such a short period of time. Furthermore, even if perfected Lu Zhenren really had accumulated enough foundation in his cultivation, how could he not condense his own special ability when he advanced to the Dharma manifestation stage with his strength that was unparalleled among the cultivators of his generation? If one wanted to inscribe inscriptions on their Dharma idol and condense the divine ability seed, one had to first condense the divine ability talisman in the core space when one was at the peak of the core forging stage. This was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Furthermore, with perfected Lu Xuanping's temperament, it was likely that even one natal divine ability would not be enough to satisfy him. In order to condense at least 2 natal divine abilities, how many divine ability talismans would perfected Lu Xianping need to condense in the core space? Not only that, but perfected Lu Xianping, in short, many people came up with many reasons to explain that perfected Lu Xianping, who was Jinling, was far from reaching the Dharma stage. In the past 10 years, apart from the mixed mineral vein incident in the Northwest Sea, the first thing that attracted attention was the reopening of the 7-star Grotto Heaven after just over 100 years. The reason why the Grotto Heaven opened this time was not because it opened again in a short period of time, but because the cultivators who entered the Grotto Heaven were not only from the North Sea. There were disciples from various sects in the Middle Mainland and the East Sea. Even after the Grotto Heaven closed, some people saw cultivators from the South Sea. And this time, the discovery and harvest of the cultivators from the various sects in the 7-star Grotto Heaven also amazed the major forces, who said that the North Sea was barren. Just the treasures in the 7-star Grotto Heaven were enough to make the cultivators of the major forces salivate. First, the cultivators from the Lu family, the #1 alchemy family in the Middle Mainland, and the disciples of the North Sea's Liao family worked together to destroy the famous dangerous Golden Canyon in the 7-star Grotto Heaven. They found a large number of spirit herbs, and various poisonous creatures in the canyon. Many of them were even extinct or about to be extinct in the cultivation world, so their value was naturally very high. And in the center of the Golden Canyon, they even found traces of the meteorite original liquid and the wonder nectar. Unfortunately, it seemed that someone else had beaten them to it. This made the cultivators from the Lu family very angry. Next, the cultivators from the Heavenly Moon sect. They somehow found out about the existence of the purple crystal wasps in the Sea of Flowers in the 7-star Grotto Heaven. However, the Sea of Flowers was not like the Golden Canyon. If one wanted to enter the Sea of Flowers to obtain the purple crystal honey, purple crystal wasp's eggs, and even the purple crystal wasp's king, they would have to face thousands of purple crystal wasps in the Sea of Flowers. And this was not good news for the cultivators in the seven-star grotto heaven, whose cultivation could only reach the peak of the blood condensation realm at most. Just when the cultivators from the heavenly moon sect paid a huge price and braved the attacks of countless purple crystal wasps to break through a few hives, they found that the purple crystal wasps in the hives seemed to have sensed it. Not only did they remove all the wasps' eggs, but there were also only a few drops of purple crystal royal jelly left. Only a large amount of purple crystal honey seemed to have not been processed in time. Even so, this kind of harvest was extremely precious to the cultivators from the heavenly moon sect, especially the half-bottle of purple crystal royal jelly that had been carefully collected in these hives. This made the cultivators from the heavenly moon sect even more excited. Then, the news that Xianling sect and the Crystal Palace had teamed up to find a medium-sized spirit stone mine in an extremely dangerous place spread like wildfire in the seven-star grotto heaven. Cultivators from all over the grotto heaven swarmed over. Xianling sect and the Crystal Palace fought fiercely with the cultivators from the other sections. In the end, because they were outnumbered, they had no choice but to compromise. The cultivators from the other sects all dug holes in the mine, riddling the entire mine with holes. No one knew if the mine could be restored the next time the grotto heaven opened. Although Xianling sect and the Crystal Palace could not stop the cultivators from destroying the mine, they could only firmly occupy the best mining spots and compete with the other sects in digging faster. Naturally, these two sects benefited the most. Unfortunately, the cultivation of the cultivators in the grotto heaven was restricted. Otherwise, they only needed to inform the sect's Dharma idol, Lao Tzu, to bring a grotto heaven magic treasure, and they could move the entire spirit stone mine into the grotto heaven and bring it back to the sect. There were quite a few dangerous places in the seven-star grotto heaven. In these dangerous places, many cultivators had died. There were even some core forging cultivators who had sealed their cultivation. As for how many dangerous places there were in the seven-star grotto heaven, even the sects of the North Sea couldn't tell. Some said there were 9, some said there were 10, and some said there were as many as 12. However, this time, the seven-star grotto heaven opened. Perhaps it was because the sects were well prepared, or because the cultivators from the outside world were attracted, they made breakthroughs in the exploration of several dangerous places. The core of several dangerous places were discovered by the cultivators from the various sections. The last and most exciting part was the opening of the seven-star palace in the seven-star grotto heaven. This time, the treasures that flew out of the seven-star palace were no longer the usual number of 49, but 63. This made the cultivators from the various sects very happy and full of rewards. In this competition, Jinling once again surpassed the sects including the Crystal Palace of the East Sea, the Carefree sect, the Lu family of the Central Plains, and the Heavenly Moon sect. In particular, the disciples and nominal disciples of the Water Sword deity, Lu Xianping, joined forces and snatched 4 of the treasures that flew out of the palace. The other disciples of Jinling also joined forces and snatched 5 of the treasures. This made the cultivators from the various sects very jealous. It wasn't that the sects didn't covet the treasures, but Wang Qi's blood condensation swordsmanship had been passed down by the Water Sword deity. In the seven-star grotto heaven, only cultivators at the peak of the blood condensation realm could fight against him. In addition, he was a core forging perfected master and could leave the seven-star grotto heaven at any time. In addition, he had the help of 3 powerful nominal disciples who were also at the core forging stage. The cultivators from the various sects could only swallow their anger. After the seven-star grotto heaven, in Tianxiang, Tianfan, Tianshui, Tiankong, Tianlu, and Tianling, 5 Dharma adepts gathered together in Tianxiang's cave on Tianling Mountain. Does this mean that the number of treasures that the seven-star palace spat out is 7 to 9? Tianling Laozu nodded. That's right, it is 7 to 9. Our disciples have gained quite a lot this time. There are quite a few extraordinary treasures that have been handed over to the Elixir Pavilion, the Crafting Hall, and the Purple Talisman Pavilion. Tianxiang sighed. We've already broken through 9 danger zones. I wonder when the seven-star grotto heaven will open again. When that time comes, we'll break through a few more danger zones. I hope some of us can wait until then. Beside him, Tianlu couldn't help but say, "Senior brother, what we've planned is really unimaginable. It's such a pity to waste the mountain and river cauldron just because of a possible guess. It should be right." At this moment, Ancestor Tian Fan suddenly said, "After all, it's a guess left behind by Ancestor Great Ginseng in the past. The jade slips our sect has collected from Fei Ling Mountain over the past several millennia have confirmed Ancestor Great Ginseng's guess. Moreover, the Fei Ling sect has clearly been carrying it out in the past. Haven't some of the secrets discovered in the treasured ship proved it as well? But what if it fails?" Tian Lu Laozu still felt heartache for the mountain and river cauldron. That was a cauldron that had condensed 3 treasures. However, Tian Lu Laozu also knew that his words were pointless. If it was him, he would also not hesitate to give up this cauldron. Tian Lu Laozu's goal was to make this matter more meticulous and not waste a cauldron that could be used as the sect's treasure. However, the Na Chuan cauldron in little brat Lu's hands is not bad. In the future, it might be possible for it to reach the same level as the mountain and river cauldron. Tian Shui Laozu also said, "I don't think it's a problem of whether it's wrong or not. Instead, it's a problem of whether our sect can swallow such a huge benefit with our current strength. The moment our sect plans to obtain this item, it will definitely cause a huge commotion. I'm afraid that the other sects won't just watch without lifting a finger, and our sect will be powerless to deal with it." Tian Fan Laozu waved his hand and said, "Let's put this problem aside for now. The 7-star paradise will open again in at least 100 years or even longer. When the 12 danger zones are all broken through, who knows how many times the 7-star paradise will open again. At that time, perhaps this matter will be handed over to Tian Lin or even Tian Ping to complete." At this moment, Lu Ping, who was known as Tian Ping Laozu by the other Laozu disciples, was running out of the refining hall with Chen Lian. "Cough, cough, 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 cough. We finally succeeded. Hee hee ha ha ha." Chen Lian squatted at the entrance of the refining hall and started laughing crazily. How could he still have the image of a grandmaster? On the contrary, he scared the blacksmiths and cultivators who were entering and exiting the refining hall. Although Lu Ping's face was also filled with exhaustion, the excitement in his eyes couldn't be concealed. He said, "I didn't expect that in just a few days since you became a Grandmaster Refiner, the cauldron's treasures were actually carved onto the Na Chuan cauldron so easily." Chapter 960. Easy, what easy? Looking at the 2 famous figures of Zhenling sect squatting on the steps in front of the artifact refining hall and laughing maniacally without a care for their image, all the other cultivators who entered and exited the artifact refining hall avoided them as far as they could. The 2 of them obviously realized that it was inappropriate to be here. Just now, it was only because the 2 of them had worked together for several months and finally succeeded in engraving the 2nd treasure restriction on the Na Chuan cauldron, making the Na Chuan cauldron a magic treasure cauldron that condensed 2 treasure restrictions. For Chen Lian, condensing a treasure restriction on a pill furnace was much more difficult than refining a spirit-nurturing magic treasure, not to mention the 2nd treasure restriction on the Na Chuan cauldron. The 2 of them stood up tiredly and were about to leave when Lu Ping happened to see Hu Lily rushing over to the refining hall. Chen Lian waved his hand and turned to leave. He had not solved the problem of installing a large spatial magic treasure on the treasured ship, but his refining skills had improved greatly over the years. If it wasn't for Lu Ping pulling him out of the refining room at the back of Tianling Mountain and asking him to make a magic treasure cauldron, even if it was Tianjiang Laozu's order, he might not have come out from under the sea cliff at the back of Tianling Mountain. Hu Lily had also rarely left the back of the sea cliff these years. All the affairs on Huangli Island had been handed over by Lu Ping to his eldest disciple Wang Xuanqi to take care of. What's wrong? When Lu Ping saw Hu Lily rushing over, he thought there was something important, so he quickly asked. Hu Lily's expression was a little strange. "Senior brother Xianwei asked me to look for you." "Xianwei?" Lu Ping was surprised and asked, "Why is he looking for me?" Hu Lily shook her head and said, "I don't know, but it seems to be urgent." For the past few days, Lu Ping had been living in seclusion on Tianling Mountain. He didn't even return to Huangli Island, as he spent most of his time in seclusion. Very few people could see him, and even if someone wanted to look for him, they would go to Tianling Mountains Hearing Wave Manor to find Hu Lily. Although Hu Lily had been repairing the treasured ship's formation at the back of the mountain cliff, she would rest every once in a while. Although she had her own cave mansion on Tianling Mountain, compared to Lu Ping's Hearing Wave Mansion, the location and the density of the spiritual qi were far inferior. She simply moved to Hearing Wave Mansion to live. Ever since Lu Ping's Dragon Dharma form obtained the pure Yang Pearl, it did not know why it did not completely refine it. Instead, it became more and more like a toy. Moreover, Lu Ping's divine will could clearly sense that the Dragon Dharma form was transferring the life divine ability rune on the silver-white reverse scale on its throat to the pure Yang Pearl. Ever since it obtained the pure Yang Pearl, the Dragon Dharma form seemed to have gained an additional toy. Lu Ping's divine will could often see the Dragon Dharma form hovering in the expanding purple mist in the core space, chasing and playing with the pure Yang Pearl. After watching it for a long time, Lu Ping could not help but have some understanding. Could it be that the Dragon Dharma form and the pure Yang Pearl were born as one? Or could it be that the pure Yang Pearl was the equivalent of the legendary Dragon Pearl? Although the Dharma power of the dragon had not completely refined the pure Yang Pearl into the Dharma power, the pure Yang Qi contained in the pure Yang Pearl was constantly affecting the Dharma power of the dragon. In fact, in these 5 years, Lu Ping's cultivation level was not increasing, but fluctuating in a strange way. The reason for this was because of the influence of the pure Yang Pearl. After Lu Ping entered the Dharma form stage from Feiling Mountain, because of the influence of the pure Yang Soul, Lu Ping's cultivation level skyrocketed. The Dharma form that had shrunk due to condensing the life divine ability had once again returned to 3.5 feet. However, in the year after obtaining the pure Yang Pearl in the true spirit grotto heaven, because of the constant influence of the pure Yang Pearl, the original 3.5 feet Dharma form had shrunk by 1 foot. After that, as the Dragon Dharma form refined the pure Yang Qi that had dissipated from the pure Yang Pearl, the Dharma form returned to 3.5 feet. In the next 4 years, Lu Ping's Dharma form continued this process, going back and forth from 3.5 feet. Although his cultivation level did not increase at all, Lu Ping could feel that his body had undergone an extremely obvious change. Lu Ping felt that his cultivation level was like a pile of soil, while the pure Yang Qi that had dissipated from the pure Yang Pearl was like water. After adding water to the tall pile of soil, although its volume continued to shrink, the pile of soil itself became more solid. On the surface of the pure Yang Pearl, as the Dragon Dharma form inscribed the life divine ability on the reverse scale, the pure Yang Qi that had been dissipated from the pure Yang Pearl became less and less. Originally, when the Dharma form played with the pure Yang Pearl, the pure Yang Qi that had been dissipated from the Dharma form would be constantly absorbed and refined by the Dharma form. Furthermore, this was extremely beneficial to the few spirit treasures that were swimming around the Dharma form. This was especially so for the Thunder 7 Treasures Gourd. After successfully condensing the 7th treasure, it had originally been unable to advance due to the lack of rare items. Now, with the help of the pure Yang Qi, for some reason, it had directly crossed this hurdle and become a spirit-nurturing treasure. This caused Lu Ping to click his tongue in wonder, but at the same time, he could not understand why. Could it be that the pure Yang Qi could replace those rare items? However, even if it could be replaced, the price was too high. The pure Yang Qi was a treasure that many early Dharma adepts could only refine and condense in their entire lives. It was much more precious than any mid-tier or upper-tier rare items. On the 5th year, as the pure Yang Pearl emitted less and less qi, Lu Ping could already feel that his Dharma form seemed to have reached a bottleneck state. The cultivation level would no longer fluctuate. At this time, Lu Ping realized that the entire Dragon Dharma form seemed to have become one. Originally, because Lu Ping had merged various kinds of flood dragon bloodlines, the Dharma form had more traces of being chiseled. At this time, at least in Lu Ping's eyes, the Dharma form now looked more like a dragon, or rather, more like a dragon's charm. On the way, Lu Ping and Hu Lily realized that spiritual master Xianwei was actually anxiously pacing back and forth at the entrance of Lu Ping's cave abode in Tianling Mountain. As soon as he saw Lu Ping appear, spiritual master Xianwei was instantly overjoyed and said, "Junior Lu, you've made me look for you." Lu Ping saw his anxious look, so he smiled and said, "Senior brother Xianwei, you haven't gone out to look for mineral veins recently?" Spiritual Master Xuanwei's face turned red. Then he smiled bitterly and said, "Junior brother Lu, please don't laugh at me anymore. Ever since I received the few jade scrolls that you gave me, I've been working very hard. These 5 years have all been spent on this." Lu Ping smiled slightly. Previously, Hu Lily had already told him that Spiritual Master Xinwei was right. These few years, it was said that he had been studying something in his own cave abode. According to him, he had been studying the legacy left behind by the mineral prospector. However, this wasn't because he was willing, but because ever since Shi Xinling and Xin Yong teamed up to tease him, no one in Jinling believed him anymore. Therefore, in these 5 years, he had pleaded several times to join a team to explore the sea. However, without the halo of a mineral prospector, who would be willing to bring along a coward who would run away at the first sign of danger? Spiritual Master Xianwei also once claimed that his skill in mineral prospecting had greatly improved, and he was no longer the dabbler from before. However, this person lied too much. Even if he told the truth, no one would believe him. In fact, as long as Spiritual Master Xianwei could reveal the news that Lu Ping had passed the mineral prospector's legacy to him, with the title of Water Sword Fairy, he could completely make many of his fellow disciples in Jinling believe him. However, just like how many cultivators in the same sect asked him to reveal the mineral prospector's legacy that he was studying for everyone to see, Spiritual Master Xianwei didn't dare to reveal this news at all. Whether it was the Crystal Palace's mineral prospector's legacy or the mention of Lu Ping's name, it would be extremely easy for people to easily recall the death of LV Shuheng, Lao Zhu, and the Crystal Palace's mineral prospector's death in the Northwest Sea. Spiritual Master Xianwei was timid, but it didn't mean that he was stupid. On the contrary, he was extremely smart. When Lu Ping passed the Crystal Palace's mineral prospector's legacy to him, Spiritual Master Xianwei already knew how big of a trouble he was carrying. Therefore, he could only look for Lu Ping's help now because he also knew that since the Heaven Spirit Sect Master had instructed him to pass this legacy to him, it also meant that he hoped that he could inherit this legacy. This kind of unorthodox and extremely useful legacy, the Heaven Spirit Sect Master definitely wouldn't let it be covered in dust. Spiritual Master Xianwei hesitated for a moment and said, "Actually, I'm looking for Junior Brother Lu because of the Northwest Mineral Vein." He already knew that the incident in the Northwest Sea was obviously caused by this Junior Brother in front of him. All these years, Junior Brother Lu had been hiding his strength and biding his time, living in seclusion. It wasn't that he didn't have the intention to avoid arousing suspicion. Now that he was still looking for Spiritual Master Xianwei with the matter of the Northwest Sea, he was afraid that it would be extremely difficult to convince him. However, Spiritual Master Xianwei was in a difficult position now. If he wanted to change his current situation, the quickest way was the mineral vein in the Northwest Sea. As expected, when Lu Ping heard that it was about the Northwest Mineral Vein, he frowned first. Taoist Profound Wei knew that the situation wasn't good with a single glance, and he hurriedly said, "Junior Brother Lu, listen to me finish. There isn't just a single mixed vein in the Northwest Sea area, and according to the trend of the vein, there are surely other branches concealed within 250 kilometers of this vein. Moreover, there's more than one." Lu Ping was stunned when he heard this, and then he looked at Spiritual Master Xianwei with a trace of suspicion. It wasn't because Lu Ping had an opportunity in the Northwest Sea at this moment, but it was because Lu Ping really didn't quite trust Spiritual Master Xuanwei's judgment. Spiritual Master Xianwei was observant, so he naturally knew what Lu Ping was thinking in his heart. So he sighed and said, "Since you and Sect Master Laozu have passed the ore-seeking master's inheritance to me, then you surely hope that this inheritance can be of some use. If you don't even give me a chance to prove it, then you might as well take this inheritance back." Lu Ping knew that what he said was reasonable, so he thought for a moment and said, "All right, I'll personally accompany you." Spiritual Master Xianwei was overjoyed when he heard this, and he said, "Don't worry, I'm extremely confident this time, and I'll surely succeed." Chapter 961. The sound of the strong wind howled in his ears, but Spiritual Master Xianwei himself did not feel the slightest feeling of the strong wind blowing against his face. He could only squeeze out a flattering smile mixed with infinite envy on his face. In her true form, Lu Qin stretched out her neck and let out a long cry. With a flap of her wings, she covered a distance of several thousand feet. She flapped her wings several times, and when she looked back, she was already 5 kilometers away. Lu Ping and enlightened Xianwei sat cross-legged on the back of the blue phoenix. A layer of invisible air covered the two of them, so that no matter how fast the blue phoenix flew, it would not be affected by the strong wind. Although the Northwest Sea was far, to the blue phoenix, it was only a day and a night's journey. When they reached the area near the mixed mineral vein in the Northwest Sea, the two of them came down from the back of the blue phoenix. Enlightened Master Xianwei was already prepared to fly away. But then, Lu Ping pointed at the sea surface and a 10-feet-long sea turtle slid into the sea through a space door. Although it was much weaker than the blue one, it was still a mid-core forging realm monster. Lu Ping signaled for Enlightened Master Xianwei to get on Lu Dagui's back first. Enlightened Master Xianwei glanced at the huge monster in front of him, whose cultivation base was almost on par with his own. In the end, he got on the tortoiseshell with fear. Where should we go? When Enlightened Xianwei heard Lu Ping's question, he quickly calmed himself down and looked at the surrounding sea. However, he saw the northwest direction and said, "Then let's go to the farthest place to have a look." With Lu Ping's help, it was naturally easy to avoid the disciples from the various sects who were patrolling near the mineral vein. Lu Ping's divine will was comparable to the most outstanding mid-Dharma adept, and according to what Lu Ping knew, this mineral vein was only guarded by 2 early Dharma adepts from each of the forces in the North Sea. These people naturally did not have an opponent comparable to Lu Ping's divine will. Although Lu Dagui's speed in the sea could not be compared to Lu Qiner's speed in the sky, as a natural demon in the water, his speed was not considered slow. In just an hour, the two of them had already reached the 500-mile area that Enlightened Xianwei had previously estimated. Enlightened Xianwei had just raised his shield of vigor and was about to dive into the depths of the sea when he saw Lu Ping stretch out his hand to stop him. Then, a huge pearl was suspended above his head, and a cover was formed to separate the sea water. The two of them dived into the depths of the sea. This is the water-repelling pearl? Enlightened Xianwei's character was not good, but he still had some knowledge. Looking at the huge pearl, his face was full of envy and he said, "With this item in hand, the deep sea is like walking on flat ground." Lu Ping did not care about Enlightened Xianwei's envious tone, but looked around the surrounding seabed and said, based on the situation in the North Sea, normally, once a medium-sized mineral vein or above is discovered, it will definitely be carefully searched around the mineral vein to see if there are any other branches. The mixed mineral vein has already been mined for 10 years, and the surrounding sea area has already been searched by many practitioners from various sections. If there are any branches, they would have been found long ago. How are you so sure that there are still branches in the nearby sea area? Enlightened Xianwei was already looking left and right at the bottom of the sea, and he was using various techniques on different kinds of underwater terrain. From time to time, he would also use various sensing talismans along with the techniques into the sea mud a few feet deep. Because he had to hang the water-repelling pearl above his head, Lu Ping had no choice but to follow Enlightened Xianwei everywhere. However, in Lu Ping's opinion, although Enlightened Xianwei didn't have a single moment of leisure, the truth was that he was like a headless fly bumping around. In any case, Lu Ping himself couldn't see through it. After a long while, Enlightened Xianwei had already walked through this sea area for a distance of nearly 10,000 feet. Only then did he stop. He let out a sigh of relief and said, "I've finally finished setting up this pulse-detecting array." Lu Ping was stunned and said, "You're setting up the array?" Enlightened Xianwei said in astonishment, "Yeah, the setting up of this pulse-detecting array is too complicated. The main thing isn't the materials used to set up the array, but the various techniques and secret techniques used to detect and locate the veins, and also the judgment of the direction of the earth veins in the mixed mineral vein." Lu Ping really didn't understand this, and even after listening for a long time, he still didn't fully understand. He said straightforwardly, in other words, "You've combined all kinds of methods and finally determined that there must be a branch vein in that medium-sized mixed mineral vein. But because of the special nature of this mineral vein, its branch vein continued to extend for 500 miles before it condensed again. Enlightened Xianwei looked at Lu Ping in a daze and said, "Yes, that's roughly what I mean." After saying that, Enlightened Xianwei threw out more than 10 upper-grade spirit stones and started to cast the seals to activate the array that was set up at the bottom of the sea. Enlightened Xianwei made dozens of seals with both hands, and then suddenly struck them out. A stream of true essence pushed the sea water aside and directly imprinted into the sea mud under his feet. The more than 10 upper-grade spirit stones that were previously set up around him suddenly lit up, and Lu Ping opened his eyes wide, waiting for the result of the exploration. However, after the time it took to drink half a cup of tea, other than the dozens of upper-grade spirit stones around spiritual master Xianwei becoming bright, there was not the slightest movement in the surrounding dark seabed. It was as if the various seals and formations that spiritual master Xianwei had cast into the seabed had disappeared. As the spiritual light of the more than 10 upper-grade spirit stones finally began to weaken, sweat gradually seeped out of enlightened Xianwei's forehead. It wasn't because of the loss of true essence, but it was obvious that he didn't have any harvest after such a long time. Finally, the more than 10 upper-grade spirit stones exhausted their spiritual power and turned into ashes. Enlightened Xianwei dispelled the true essence around him. "You didn't find anything?" When Lu Ping saw Enlightened Xianwei's dejected look, he thought about it and still comforted him. Could it be that there's a mistake in setting up the array previously? Lu Ping really couldn't see the slightest pattern in Enlightened Xianwei's previous busyness, so he couldn't help but ask. Enlightened Xianwei shook his head with a bitter smile and said, "No, this is my livelihood. How can I not be attentive?" The vein detection array set up by a mind seeker is different from the array set up by a formation master. It can even be said that they're two completely different things. "There's no branch vein here," Lu Ping said with a smile. "That's nothing. Didn't you say that there might be branch veins in 4 directions? Now that we've only identified one of them, aren't there still 3 other places?" Enlightened Xianwei took a glance at Lu Ping and moved his lips, but he didn't say a word. Enlightened Xianwei confidently pulled Lu Ping out to look for the branch vein, but he didn't expect that the result would be a blow to his head. If Enlightened Xianwei had 70% confidence in the existence of the branch vein earlier, then this unfavorable opening had directly dispelled 40% of his confidence. To be honest, Lu Ping wasn't particularly optimistic about him, but since he was already here, there was no reason for him to retreat just because he failed in one direction. Seeing Enlightened Xianwei's dejected look, Lu Ping could only pull him towards the Northeast Sea region, which was the second location that Enlightened Xianwei had previously deduced. However, he secretly muttered in his heart, "Originally, I was encouraged to come here by Enlightened Xianwei, but now, it became me who encouraged him to persevere." When they arrived at the Northeast Sea region that Enlightened Xianwei had previously judged, both of them dived to the bottom of the sea again. Lu Ping pointed to the bottom of the sea and said, "There, don't be discouraged. Let's do it again. Maybe we can find it this time." As soon as Lu Ping's voice fell, Enlightened Xianwei stammered for a long time. Then he said with a pout, "Junior brother Lu, can you lend me a dozen top-grade spirit stones first? Without spirit stones, I can't set up the formation." Lu Ping suddenly collapsed. This Enlightened Xianwei was really AB*TCH. He knew that he needed to explore 4 directions to look for the branch vein this time, but he only brought the top-grade spirit stones to activate the pulse detection formation once. It was obvious that he wanted to get something from Lu Ping. It was fortunate that he wasn't able to detect the branch vein the first time. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how justified he was when he asked for spirit stones from Lu Ping just now. In fact, it was just like what Lu Ping had guessed. The reason why Enlightened Xianwei chose the northwest direction from the beginning was that, in his opinion, the northwest direction had the most hope of having the branch vein, but he never thought that the most promising place would be empty. When Enlightened Xianwei saw Lu Ping staring at him, he immediately felt terrified and quickly said, "Junior brother Lu, you don't know that in the past 5 years, no one was willing to believe me. In these 5 years, I didn't have any harvest. These top-grade spirit stones are the leftovers that I had saved up. In the past 5 years, in order to study this secret technique of mind detection. You see, my cultivation has almost not improved at all. All right, all right. Lu Ping didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he looked at this superb senior brother in front of him. However, what he said was somewhat reasonable. Although in the eyes of a rich person like Lu Ping, even a dozen top-grade spirit stones was something that Lu Ping could take out with a bit of effort, but for a poor core forging cultivator like enlightened Xianwei, a dozen top-grade spirit stones were a considerable amount of wealth. Lu Ping simply took out 100 top-grade spirit stones and gave it to him. Is it enough? Enlightened Xianwei was immediately overjoyed and said, "It's enough, it's enough. Even if I didn't find the vein this time, it's enough for me to use for a long time." But then, enlightened Xianwei felt a chill rising from beside him. Only then did his whole body shiver. He knew that he had let the cat out of the bag, so he quickly said, "Junior brother, don't misunderstand. This time, although it's because I really don't have enough spirit stones to cultivate, that's why I mustered up the courage to look for you. But my previous judgment is definitely not wrong. I've really been studying those or prospecting inheritances seriously for the past 5 years." After saying that, without waiting for Lu Ping to urge him, he began to carry the moonlight pearl and began to set up a vein prospecting array around the seabed. This time, Lu Ping didn't bother to follow him. He just passed the moonlight pearl to him to use. Anyway, this sea that was hundreds of feet deep was really not worth mentioning to Lu Ping. Rumble. It was as if the whole seabed had an earthquake. Lu Ping's spirit was lifted, and he saw enlightened Xianwei, who was not far away, suddenly kneeling on the ground. Lu Ping didn't know what was going on, so he hurried over and saw this guy kneeling on the ground crying. Seeing Lu Ping coming over, enlightened Xianwei sobbed, "Moss, junior brother, you found it, you found it. There's a branch vein here, and it's a small mineral vein, a small mineral vein. The few mineral veins that I found by luck in my life were all extremely low-quality micro-mineral veins. This is the first time that I found a small mineral vein." Lu Ping said angrily. The mine prospecting master of the Crystal Palace even found a medium mixed mineral vein of such high quality. What's there to be excited about for you to find a small mineral vein? Let's leave this place quickly and go to the sea area. Although the movement here isn't big, we still have to prevent other cultivators from rushing over to check. Enlightened Xianwei rolled and crawled behind Lu Ping. This time, Lu Ping didn't let Lu Dugawei out. Instead, he performed the water escape skill to hide the two of them and headed straight to the southeast direction. At the same time, a sound transmission sword suddenly rushed out from the sea surface and flashed all the way to the southeast direction where Jinling was at. Perhaps it was because enlightened Xuanwei's mineral prospecting secret skill was really practiced to perfection, or perhaps it was because luck would always turn for the better. In the southeast sea area, along with the faint vibration of the seabed again, enlightened Xianwei actually found a branch vein for the second time. Although it was just a small mineral vein compared to the previous one, but thinking of the high-quality spiritual materials in the mixed mineral vein, this small mineral vein could be said to be very valuable. This time, there was no need for Lu Ping to urge him. Enlightened Xianwei, who was glowing, felt that Lu Ping's speed was too slow. "Junior brother Lu, hurry up, go faster." Lu Ping, who was carrying enlightened Xianwei, performed the water escape skill and headed to the southwest direction, wished that he could throw enlightened Xianwei to the bottom of the sea to feed the fish. In the southwest sea area, enlightened Xianwei, who was already very familiar with setting up the pulse-detecting formation, completed the pulse-detecting formation for the 4th time in no time. After he finished setting up the dozens of top-grade spirit stones given by Lu Ping, enlightened Xianwei made a series of hand signs and a gush of life vitality suddenly hit the seabed. Seeing that the formation was about to be activated, a bluish-purple light flashed across the seabed. The life vitality that enlightened Xianwei used to activate the formation was immediately dispersed. Enlightened Xianwei looked at Lu Ping inexplicably and opened his mouth to ask, "Junior brother Lu, shuh?" Lu Ping made a shushing gesture in front of his mouth and pointed to the sea surface. Enlightened Xianwei immediately understood. He stretched out his hand and took off the water moon repelling pearl from his head. After that, he performed a breath-concealing technique. Even though it wasn't a brilliant spell, there was no need to worry that anyone would be able to discover it at the seabed, which was almost 10,000 feet deep. Lu Ping thought for a moment and stretched out his hand to pull behind him. A five-colored cloak was pulled over by Lu Ping from the empty space behind him. It was none other than the Cloud Glow 5 Elemental Cloak. Lu Ping threw the Cloud Glow 5 Elemental Cloak to enlighten Xianwei. Immediately, it covered his entire body. It was to hide his tracks and protect him at the same time. Meanwhile, Lu Ping himself suddenly disappeared from the seabed. When he reappeared, he was already at the seabed, which was only a few feet above the sea surface. However, at this time, Lu Ping had already turned into flowing water and didn't have to worry about being discovered at all. Xiang Lu Laozu, our Blue Sea sect is sincerely inviting you to join our sect. Don't be ungrateful. You have to know that the Blue Sea bell in your hand was left behind by our sect leader, Laozu. Our Blue Sea sect will get it back no matter what. If you still don't agree, we can only snatch it by force. Lu Ping recognized this voice. It seemed to be the mid-Dharma adept of the Blue Sea sect, Dong Kuan Laozu. And at this time, even though Lu Ping didn't dare to release his divine will to investigate, when the few auras on the sea surface were as strong as the sun, it still clearly told Lu Ping that there were currently 5 Dharma adepts facing each other on the sea surface. Moreover, there was one person in the middle while the other 4 surrounded him in the middle. Xiang Lu Laozu? Blue Sea sect? Finally, they were still facing each other. This was going to be a good show to watch. Chapter 962. Xiang Lu Laozu had obtained the vast sea bell, a spirit treasure left behind by Vast Sea Laozu, from the Vast Sea Relic. This had shaken the entire North Sea cultivation world. Due to the Vast Sea Bell's special effect on the Mara family, the various sects had used both carrot and stick to obtain the Vast Sea Bell from Xiang Lu Laozu. This included the sect that Lu Ping belonged to, Zhenling. However, when Xiang Lu Laozu had obtained the Vast Sea Bell, he had already realized that the sects of the North Sea would not let go of a lone cultivator with no background or backing like him so easily. Thus, he had immediately disappeared. No matter how good the sect's conditions were, or how severe the threats, Xiang Lu Laozu had ignored them. After that, during the Battle of Frost Island, Xiang Lu Laozu had broken through the Jade Shura's interception and used the Vast Sea Bell to directly attack the soul-devouring formation formed by demonic cultivators. This had alleviated the pressure on Frost Island and had played a crucial role in helping the cultivators of Frost Island last until reinforcements arrived. After that, the North Sea cultivation world, out of moral considerations, and in addition to the fact that after the Battle of Frost Island, Mara's calamity seemed to have been greatly alleviated, the sects could no longer target Xiang Lu Laozu because of the Vast Sea Bell. Xiang Lu Laozu's situation in the North Sea had temporarily been alleviated. However, Xiang Lu Laozu had cultivated for almost 1,000 years. He would not let his guard down because of this, especially when he knew that the Vast Sea Bell was Laozu's life treasure. Even if the entire North Sea cultivation world admitted that the Vast Sea Bell belonged to him, the Vast Sea sect would spare no effort to snatch it from him. In reality, Xiang Lu Laozu's guess was not wrong at all. The Vast Sea sect had never given up on pursuing the Vast Sea Bell. In the Vast Sea sect's view, the Vast Sea Bell was originally theirs. No one could change the fact that the Vast Sea Bell was in anyone's hands. However, Xiang Lu Laozu was not the only one who knew the urgency of the Blue Sea sect's desire to reclaim the Blue Sea sect. Everyone in the entire North Sea training world knew this. If the Blue Sea sect really wanted to reclaim the Blue Sea sect, they would not only have to face a mid-Dharma adept who was in hiding everywhere, but also the obstruction of other sections. As the saying goes, hard work pays off. Under the persistent efforts of the Blue Sea sect, they finally tracked down Xiang Lu Laozu. Moreover, thanks to the mixed mineral vein in the Northwest Sea, the Blue Sea sect discovered that Xiang Lu Laozu was hiding in the Northwest Sea. Taking advantage of the fact that the various sects in the North Ocean had relaxed because of the Great Tribulation of Mara and the various sects had reduced their attention to the Ocean Bell, the Ocean sect secretly set up a trap. Finally, the 4 Dharma idol Laozu of the sect joined forces to trap it in the sea. If one were to say that after Tian Xiang Laozu had advanced to the late Dharma stage, which sect in the North Sea could take second place, it would undoubtedly be Xianling's sect, which had just retired from first place. 10 years ago, if someone were to ask this question, then the Blue Sea sect and Xianling's sect would each have a 50% chance of winning. But now, if one were to ask who was the second largest sect in the North Sea training world, perhaps 70% of the North Sea cultivators would look at the Blue Sea sect. After the Blue Sea sect and the Tsanglang sect merged, the Blue Sea sect had a total of 7 Dharma idol Laozu, 3 of whom were mid-Dharma adepts. After Zhang Shi and Dong Kuan Laozu had advanced, the Blue Sea sect had 8 Dharma idol Laozu and 4 mid-Dharma adepts. At the same time, Xianling's sect only had Feng Shutao who had advanced to the Dharma stage, and the entire Xianling sect only had 6 Dharma adepts. However, with Daosheng Laozu, the number of Dharma adepts in the Blue Sea sect, even though the Blue Sea sect had the advantage in terms of Dharma adepts, they did not dare to compete with Xianling's sect. After that, with the support of the Crystal Palace, Xianling's sect had Lu Shuheng and Lin Shuqing condense their Dharma powers, and the number of Dharma adepts in Xianling's sect increased to 8. At the same time, after Feng Shutao returned from the Yingtian Temple, he had advanced to the mid-Dharma stage due to his Dharma soul, and this had solidified Xianling's sect's position as the second largest sect in the North Sea. However, good times did not last long. These years, the Blue Sea sect had also been developing, and Zhang Shi had also obtained a Dharma soul. There had long been rumors in the North Sea training world that Zhang Shi had also advanced to the mid-Dharma stage, but Zhang Shi had always lived in seclusion, and outsiders could only guess what level Zhang Shi had reached. However, other than Zhang Shi, the Blue Sea sect had 2 more second-generation disciples, Wang Shiqing and He Shiyun, who had advanced to the Dharma stage. This brought the number of Dharma adepts to 10, and they had once again surpassed Xianling's sect. However, an even greater misfortune soon befell Xianling's sect. First, Dao Shi Laozu had been assassinated by Yin Xianchu, and then Lu Shuheng Laozu had mysteriously fallen in the Northwest Seas. This time, they did not even know who the murderer was. Xianling's sect had suffered heavy losses one after another, but at the same time, the North Sea training world had spread the news that the East Pole Laozu of the Blue Sea sect was preparing to undergo his second Thunder trial. The entire North Sea training world was once again in an uproar. If the Blue Sea sect could still be said to be incomparable to Xianling's sect because they did not have a Dharma adept, once the East Pole Laozu successfully advanced to the Dharma stage, then the Blue Sea sect's position as the second largest sect in the North Sea would no longer be shaken by anyone. And now, of the 4 Dharma adepts of the Blue Sea sect who had set up a trap to kill Xiang Lu Laozu, other than the mid-Dharma adept Dong Kuan Laozu whom Lu Ping had heard about, there was another who was also at the mid-Dharma stage. However, from what Lu Ping could sense, although this person's aura was extremely restrained, the threat he gave off to Lu Ping seemed to be far greater than that of Dong Kuan Laozu. These 2 people surrounded Xiang Lu Laozu from the front and back, and beside them were 2 early Dharma adepts. One of them gave Lu Ping a very familiar feeling. It should be Wang Shiqing, who had tried to ambush Lu Ping on Frost Island, but had instead been injured by Lu Ping's divine will. Haha, what a joke. A voice rang out from the surface of the sea. My friend Dong Kuan, you and I are both smart people. There is no need to hide anything. Laozu will not give up on the sea bell no matter what, and it is something that your Blue Sea sect must have. The old man does not believe that if he joins your Blue Sea sect, the sea bell will be in the hands of the old man. After a moment of silence, Dong Kuan Laozu's voice rang out again. That's right, the sea bell is our sect's sacred relic. It will be extremely difficult for an outsider to wield it. Even if Xiang Lu joins our Blue Sea sect, even if your Dharma power is sealed and you become our slave, the sea bell cannot be handed over to you. Xiang Lu Laozu laughed coldly and said, the old man is a lone practitioner. To be able to come this far, he naturally has his own principles. We have all given up on those superficial things, and we'll see who is the real deal. Although the old man was accidentally surrounded by the 4 of you, if you want to take the sea bell from the old man's hands, it will depend on whether you have the ability to do so. Dong Kuan Laozu did not speak anymore. He reached into his robes and took out an item. It was the sea transfer order that Dong Yi Laozu had used in the sea treasure. This spiritual treasure was also one of the 3 treasures of the sea. However, as the Blue Sea sect's inherited spiritual treasure, the Dharma adepts of the Blue Sea sect could all use it. Xianglu Laozu saw that Dongkuan Laozu had taken out the sea transfer order and knew that today's matter would not be resolved peacefully. With a clang, the sea bell was already in his hands. At this time, the Dharma adept behind Xianglu Laozu suddenly spoke up. Xianglu, my friend, it is not easy for you to train to this stage as a lone practitioner. Are you really willing to give up your entire life's worth of training today? Xianglu Laozu was so angry that he laughed. Zhangxi, everyone says that you have hidden your abilities well and are no weaker than Jinling Jiang Tianlin in training. Today, let the old man see what is so special about you. It was indeed Zhangxi. Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. This guy had also advanced to the mid-Dharma stage, but he had hidden his level of training. He still looked like he was at the peak of the early Dharma stage. Clang! The loud sound of the bell spread out in all directions with Xianglu Laozu at the center. Wang Shiqing and He Shiyun, who were on the left and right of Xianglu Laozu, hurriedly used their powers to block it. Even Dongkuan Laozu's face was solemn. He used the sea transfer order in his hands to block the powerful sound wave attack, but it was too slow. Just as the sea bell rang, Lu Ping's hands formed an invisible sword spell. His entire aura was hidden again in the form of flowing water. The sound wave shook the seawater, but it was not able to disperse the aura around Lu Ping. It was discovered by the few Dharma adepts on the surface of the sea, Laozu. Lu Ping's divine will continue to explore the depths of the seawater. He realized that the sound of the bell had affected the seawater hundreds of feet deep. Fortunately, the place where Sage Xianwei was hiding happened to be thousands of feet deep. Coupled with the protection of the 5 elements cloud glow robe, it would not affect him. At this time, Xianglu Laozu took the opportunity to rush towards Zhangxi. However, the scene of Zhangxi covering his ears and retreating did not happen as Xianglu Laozu had imagined. All he saw was Zhangxi frowning. Then, under Xianglu Laozu's shocked gaze, he released all the aura around him. The mid-Dharma stage. He was actually at the mid-Dharma stage. At this time, Xianglu Laozu was like an arrow knocked on a bowstring. He had no choice but to release it. Even if he regretted it, it was already too late. The sea bell in his hand hung above his head, and a wave-like light curtain fell down, protecting Xianglu Laozu within it. He clenched his fists, and a long sword suddenly appeared in his hands. Kill! Xianglu Laozu struck with his sword, and the 10-foot-long sword light instantly cut through the void in front of him. When it appeared again, it was already in front of Zhangxi. Suddenly, countless silent sword rays appeared in front of Zhangxi. Like a school of piranhas in the ocean, the sword rays swarmed towards the saber ray. It was similar to Lu Ping's water seep sword art. In an instant, Zhangxi's water seep sword art devoured Xianglu's saber ray and disintegrated it. At this time, Dongkuan Laozu had already broken free from the influence of the sea bell. He waved the sea transferring order in his hand, and the surrounding seawater instantly formed a huge whirlpool. Xianglu Laozu's feet tightened, and a huge suction force was about to pull him into the whirlpool. The sea bell above Xianglu Laozu's head vibrated, and the whirlpool under his feet suddenly shook, causing water to splash everywhere. Waves surged up from the sea. At this time, Wang Shiqing and He Shiyun's combined attack also came from the left and right. At this time, Zhangxi would not let go of the opportunity to attack. Xianglu Laozu was surrounded by enemies on all sides. Even with the protection of the sea bell, it was inevitable that he would be at a disadvantage. Chapter 963. Although the sea bell was only a first-stage spirit treasure, its reputation in the North Sea training world was not just because of its special ability to counter Mara. The sea bell was capable of both offense and defense. Even though Xianglu Laozu was surrounded by 4 Dharma adepts, 2 of whom were adepts of the same level as him, with just the defense of the sea bell, Xianglu Laozu was able to remain undefeatable for a short period of time, even though his attacks were weak. However, Xianglu Laozu could only rely on the sea bell to protect himself. He was a lone practitioner, and it was already very rare for him to be able to advance to the early Dharma stage. Who would have thought that he would have a great encounter when he was in the early Dharma stage, which allowed him to pass the Thunder trial and advance to the mid-Dharma stage, becoming one of the few top masters in the North Sea training world. After that, he had accidentally taken the sea bell for himself in the vast sea treasure. His life could be said to have been blessed by the heavens. However, Xianglo Laozu understood his own strength. This kind of cultivation that he had obtained through a lucky encounter was a far cry from the mid-Dharma adepts of the various sects who had advanced to the mid-Dharma stage through real means. Before Xianglo Laozu had obtained the sea bell, the only personal treasure he had was a spirit-nurturing treasure that had condensed 8 treasures. Other than that, he had almost no other treasures that he could use. As a Dharma adept, his wealth could not be described as poor. However, even after he had obtained the sea bell, he had not been able to successfully condense his personal great magical power when he had advanced to the early Dharma stage. Now that he had reached the mid-Dharma stage, he still did not have a personal great magical power. This meant that Xianglo Laozu could be considered one of the weakest of the mid-Dharma adepts. Adepts who had not condensed their personal great magical power would usually not be able to bring out 120% of the power of their personal treasures. Similarly, the existence of a spiritual treasure was not only dependent on its own power, but it also required the practitioner's own magical power to complement it. The most important of these was undoubtedly the existence of a personal great magical power. Xianglo Laozu did not have a personal great magical power. Although the sea bell was still powerful in his hands, he could not bring out 120% of its power when combined with his personal great magical power. Although the 4 Laozu of the Songhai sect were temporarily unable to break through Xianglo Laozu's defense, the 4 of them could join forces and trap Xianglo Laozu. Spiritual treasures were not that easy to control. As long as Xianglo Laozu's inner yuan was depleted, he would be at the mercy of the Songhai sect. However, the Songhai sect's adepts would naturally not wait so passively. The great power that erupted from the battle between the two sides had already spread hundreds of miles away, and it could attract the attention of the other sects in the North Sea at any time. Once someone heard the news and rushed over, the situation would most likely turn ugly, so the Songhai sect would definitely want to end the battle as soon as possible. And Xianglo Laozu would not sit still and wait for his inner yuan to be depleted. But he also knew that his chances of breaking out of the encirclement were very slim. At this time, he hoped that the battle between the two sides would attract the attention of others. Once someone rushed over, the situation would become chaotic, and Xianglo Laozu would then have a chance to escape. Therefore, even though Xianglo Laozu knew that delaying the battle would not do him any good, he had no choice but to do so. Dongquan Laozu held the sea transferring order in his hand, and then pushed it with both hands. Instantly, layers of huge waves rolled up on the surface of the sea, rolling back towards the water curtain that the sea bell had lowered. Adding fuel to the fire, Dongquan Laozu had painstakingly condensed this great magical power after he had advanced to the mid-Dharma stage. After using it through the sea transferring order, it was actually able to push back the protective light curtain that the sea bell had lowered, layer by layer, and gradually, Xianglo Laozu, who was behind the light curtain, was revealed. This was the power of a great magical power. Among the 3 treasures of the sea, in terms of power, the sea bell was the most powerful, the cloud sail was mainly used for defense, and the sea transferring order was actually the weakest due to its quality and other factors. However, with the help of Dongquan Laozu's great magical power, the power of the sea transferring order overwhelmed the sea bell in one fell swoop, and layer by layer, the protective light curtain that the sea bell had lowered. He Shiyun and Wang Shiqing took the opportunity to attack from both sides. Without the protective light curtain, Xianglo Laozu used a long knife in his hand to block with all his might. Suddenly, he felt an evil wind coming from behind him, and a strong pressure was exerted on Xianglo Laozu through the sea bell before the attack could reach him. Xianglu Laozu was shocked and blocked Wang Shiqing's attack, but used a defensive treasure to block He Xiyun's attack. Ignoring the turbulence in his body, he activated the inner yuan in his body and shook the sea bell above his head. Clang! Xianglu Laozu's face turned pale, and the light curtain hanging down from the sea bell suddenly brightened. The great magical power that Dongkuan Laozu used to push the waves was weakened by the sound waves of the sea bell, and then the light curtain hanging down from the sea bell suppressed the waves on the sea and protected Xiang Lu Laozu again. This was the advantage of a spirit treasure that could attack and defend. Although Xiang Lu Laozu did not condense a great magical power like Dongkuan Laozu, the quality of the sea bell was far above that of the sea transferring order. To put it bluntly, the sea transferring order and the great magical power of push the waves were more inclined to support, not a real attacking treasure and skill. That was why Xiang Lu Laozu could barely resist the attack when he used the sea bell with all his strength. However, although the sea bell once again protected Xiang Lu Laozu, behind Xiang Lu Laozu, Zhang Shi's attack had already rushed over with lightning speed. Great magical power. Xiang Lu Laozu let out a strange cry. His whole body surged with vital energy, and a layer of obvious air waves exploded from Xiang Lu Laozu's body, directly merging into the protective light curtain around him and the sea bell above his head. Lu Ping, who was at the bottom of the sea, saw clearly through the flashing cyan light curtain that Xiang Lu Laozu had no time to use the vital energy in his body, so he forced the vital energy in his blood out of his body. Although this could maximize the output of his vital energy in a very short time and exert its power to the extreme, it was a great harm to the cultivator's body. Although the sea bell was helped by Xiang Lu Laozu's desperate vital energy, and even the originally dark body of the bell began to shine with a hazy luster, he did not see that in Zhang Shi's hand there was a long sword shining with orange-red blood. Spiritual treasure. The cyan light in Lu Ping's eyes shone brightly. Lu Ping had seen such a spiritual treasure in the hands of Jiang Tianlin Laozu. It was the kind of spiritual treasure that was snatched from Blood Shura and transformed after passing the Thunder Tribulation. Previously, he had only heard that the Sea Flame sect had killed a Blood Shura during the Ice War and obtained a companion spiritual treasure. Later, the patriarchs of the Four Small Forces had also obtained a companion spiritual treasure. However, he had never heard that the Blue Sea sect had also obtained a companion spiritual treasure, and it seemed that they had successfully passed the Thunder Retribution. The Blue Sea sect hid so deeply, and if one wanted to transform the spiritual treasure, they must have a master crafting instrument. When did the Blue Sea sect have a master crafting instrument? Previously, he had heard from his teacher that the Blue Sea sect had only accumulated 4 spiritual treasures after tens of thousands of years of inheritance. The number was similar to that of Jinling, but these 4 spiritual treasures were all First Tribulation spiritual treasures, and 2 of them, including the Sea Transferring Order, were more inclined to support spiritual treasures. From this point of view, the foundation of the Blue Sea sect was still not as good as Jinling. Not to mention that the 4 spiritual treasures passed down by Jinling were treasures with extremely strong attack power. Just the Second Tribulation spiritual treasure that Tian Xiang Laozu controlled was enough to suppress everything. Moreover, although the wind and snow fans that were controlled by Tian Fan and Tian Shui were only First Tribulation spiritual treasures, the 2 were a pair. Under the situation where Tian Fan and Tian Shui performed a joint attack, the power of the 2 spiritual treasures combined could even barely compete with the Second Tribulation spiritual treasure. Otherwise, Jinling would not have been able to compete with Dao Sheng Laozu for so many years with the cultivation of 2 middle Dharma plane cultivators. However, unknowingly, the Blue Sea sect actually had another First Tribulation spiritual treasure. Although the spiritual treasure that was transformed from a companion spiritual treasure was somewhat uneven, it was after all a longsword spiritual treasure with extremely strong attack power. In the hands of Zhang Shi, who was also famous for his swordsmanship, it was even more complimenting. Pooh! The light curtain that the Blue Sea bell hung down was instantly pierced by the longsword. Although the spiritual treasure longsword could no longer move forward, the sword chi that shot out from the tip of the sword directly shattered the defensive treasure that Xiang Lu Laozu hurriedly took out. Then, it pierced through the protective vigor chi, leaving 2 bloody holes on Xiang Lu Laozu's shoulders. The orange-red spiritual treasure flying sword struck back. Xiang Lu Laozu mobilized his true yuan to suppress the numerous sword chi that were rampaging in his blood vessels and wreaking havoc. However, The other Blue Sea sect cultivators at the side would not give him the chance. He Shiyun and Wang Shiqing worked together to attack again. Dongku and Laozu also held the Sea Transfer Order above his head, preparing to use a great divine power to destroy the defense of the Blue Sea Bell in one fell swoop and kill Xiang Lu Laozu completely. However, the few people who were fighting fiercely did not notice that under the seawater, an invisible stream of water was rapidly shooting towards the battlefield. Zhang Shi seriously injured Xiang Lu Laozu with one strike. Just as he was about to use his sword technique again to kill Xiang Lu Laozu, while the other three sect members worked together to restrain Xiang Lu Laozu, his divine telekinesis suddenly captured something in the surroundings. Zhang Shi was indeed worthy of being the second-generation disciple of North Sea with the most potential. He was on par with Jiang Tianlin Laozu. Although Lu Ping had tried his best to restrain himself, Zhang Shi still discovered something. "Oh no, junior brother Shiqing, be careful." Zhang Shi's expression changed drastically. He turned the blood-orange sword and was about to slash behind Wang Shiqing. Wang Shiqing also seemed to sense the approaching danger at this moment. The magic treasure that was originally aimed at Xiang Lu Laozu was retracted with all his might to protect himself. However, the speed of the danger had clearly exceeded his expectations. A voice sounded in his ear, causing Wang Shiqing's hair to stand on end. "If I were you, I'd better stand still and not move." He felt a chill on his neck, and a blue flying sword suddenly appeared on his neck. Behind him, there was an explosion as if countless metals were colliding with each other in midair. Zhang Shi's furious roar was followed by the exclamations of He Shiyun and Patriarch Dong Kuan, who were in front of him, as well as the looks of disbelief on their faces. Chapter 964. The blood-orange sword streaked across the surface of the sea like a bright, blood-red light. Just as it was about to slash Wang Shiqing's back, a sword light leaped out of the sea like a dragon emerging from the water, blocking the blood-orange sword. The blood-orange sword flipped in the air, and countless blood-red sword lights rained down. The two sword lights also transformed into countless sword lights that swam towards the blood-orange sword. Countless explosions sounded like cold water being poured into a pot of boiling oil. The sound of metal clashing rose and fell, and the water mist that had been scattered by the sword chi was once again cut down by the crisscrossing sword lights until it was as small as it could be. Finally, it became a fine mist that floated in midair, gradually rising up and spreading out. If there had been a practitioner with a lower level of practice here, even if he had not been killed by the sound of the sword, he would have been torn to pieces by the sword chi that filled the sky. At this moment, the water spirit sword's sneak attack had succeeded. A dignified early Dharma adept had actually been captured by someone in one move. Thin water-flowing sword. Jinling, Lu Xianping. Zhang Shi's face was ashen as he roared out word by word. The blood-orange sword returned without success, and the exploding water mist on the surface of the sea gradually dissipated. Lu Ping stood quietly on the surface of the sea behind Wang Shiqing, a smile on his face. The water spirit's sword floated in the air on its own, pressing against Wang Shiqing's neck. A thin line of blood was already flowing down his skin. Lu Ping nodded slightly and smiled. "Senior Zhang Shi, long time no see. Your level of practice and swordsmanship have improved greatly. I am truly impressed." On the other side, the sudden change of events had caused the battle between Xianglo Laozu and the two Dharma adepts, Dong Kuan and He Shiyun, to stop. However, Dong Kuan and He Shiyun, together with Zhang Shi, who was facing off against Lu Ping, were still surrounding Xianglo Laozu. Zhang Shi did not reply to Lu Ping's words. Instead, it was Dong Kuan and Laozu who were beside him who said angrily, "How dare you? Do you know how much trouble you've caused? You kidnapped a cultivator from our sect? Is Jinling's sect ready to start a war with us because of you?" Dong Kuan and Laozu's threats were clever. It was obvious that only Lu Ping had appeared, so it was definitely not Jinling who had received the news. It must have been Lu Ping who had just arrived. Kidnapping a sect's Laozu was not a big deal, but it was not a small matter either. Two of a sect. It was not a big deal, but it was not a small matter. It was not to be a small matter. was to be. Offending a sect for a lone practitioner was clearly not of a sect. The meaning behind Patriarch Dong Kuen's words was very simple. Don't drag the entire sect down because of your hot-headedness. However, he didn't know that after the incident with Lu Xiuheng, Lu Ping dared to attack again because he had already weighed the pros and cons and had a plan in his heart. Lu Ping was polite on the surface, but the aqua sword on Wang Shiqing's neck did not loosen at all. Instead, it tightened. More blood flowed out from the wound on Wang Shiqing's neck. Lu Ping was polite on the surface, but the aqua sword on Wang Shiqing's neck did not loosen at all. Instead, it tightened even more. More blood flowed out from the wound on Wang Shiqing's neck. A stream of sword qi cut into the wound through the toughness of the netherwater sword, completely wiping out the Jinqi ancestor Wang Shiqing had secretly accumulated. The sharp sword qi moved freely in Wang Shiqing's blood vessels, causing Wang Shiqing's own Jinqi to be utterly destroyed. When Zhang Shi saw the pain on Wang Shiqing's face, he guessed what was going on. He said anxiously, "Junior brother Wang, don't be impatient. This person has already advanced to the Dharma stage. Don't resist unnecessarily." Lu Ping was still calm, but he ignored the people from the Blue Sea sect. Instead, he turned to Xiang Lu Laozu, who was taking the opportunity to suppress his internal injuries and recover his inner yuan. "Elder Xiang Lu, what do you say?" The faces of the Blue Sea sect cultivators darkened. Lu Ping's intentions were obvious. If not for the Bell of the Sea, would he be willing to take such a big risk? Xiang Lu Laozu knew that he was facing a choice. Should he take the opportunity to escape, or should he stand on Zhenling's side? Ancestor Xiang Lu knew that if he were to seize this opportunity to flee now, then not to mention whether Lu Tianping would help him hold back one or two people from the Azure Sea sect, even if Lu Tianping helped him, he wouldn't just offend the Azure Sea sect. In this way, Xiang Lu Laozu could only stand on Zhenling's side. If he escaped this time, he would at least have Zhenling's protection. Moreover, if he fell into the hands of the Blue Sea sect, even if he did not die, the Bell of the Sea would definitely not be handed over to him. But if he stood on Zhenling's side, although the Bell of the Sea was precious, it had no other meaning to Zhenling other than increasing his battle power. Since that was the case, it was the same in the hands of any Dharma adept. Under such circumstances, Zhenling would definitely care about his reputation, and the Bell of the Sea would most likely end up in his hands. Otherwise, what would the cultivators, families, and forces that had come to join Zhenling because of his rise to power? Furthermore, after this battle, Xiang Lu Laozu was somewhat disheartened. Although he had the Bell of the Sea, his own strength was not that great. Even Dong Kuen Laozu, with just a sea transferring order, was able to attack more and defend less. One must know that the power of the Blue Sea sect was far above that of the sea transferring order. Not to mention people like Zhang Shi. The protection of the Bell of the Sea was not even an impenetrable wall in front of him. Thinking about how even people like Zhang Shi were so powerful, what kind of level would Zhenling's Jiang Tianlin have reached? Moreover, Zhenling was a sect with a great cultivator. Receiving such protection was better than being a lonely ghost in the North Sea all these years. Thinking about this, Xiang Lu Laozu also smiled and said, "That's good too. Today, the old man will meet with you from the Blue Sea sect." Ha ha ha. Lu Ping let out a long laugh and waved his hand, pressing it on Wang Shiqing's back. Wang Shiqing's body leaned forward, and a mouthful of blood spurted from his mouth. The leaders of the Blue Sea sect were all shocked, but they quickly realized that Wang Shiqing was not dead. He was just seriously injured, and his cultivation was sealed. After what had happened to Lu Xiuheng, Lu Ping naturally did not dare to easily kill Laozu from other sects, especially in broad daylight. The various sects in the cultivation world naturally had their limits. Unless it was a matter of life and death, they naturally would not act recklessly. Otherwise, with the strength of the Dharma Laozu, if they really went on a killing spree, no sect could bear such a loss. Even so, Lu Ping naturally would not keep a potential threat by his side. This palm strike directly scattered the spiritual ether in Wang Shiqing's blood. The force penetrated the core space, and Wang Shiqing's Dharma power was pierced. Although this kind of injury did not completely destroy his cultivation, It was probably much more difficult for him to recover than Tiancheng Laozu. How dare you? He Shiyun roared and was about to pounce on Lu Ping, but was unexpectedly stopped by Zhang Shi. Looking at He Shiyun's puzzled expression, Zhang Shi said directly, "You are no match for him. First, hold Xiang Lu with Uncle Master Dong Kuan. Wait until this kid is taken care of first." Zhang Shi did not care about the flash of shock in He Shiyun's eyes after hearing his words. He shook the blood-orange sword in his hand and shot towards Lu Ping. It was not that He Shiyun was shocked by what Zhang Shi had said. Lu Tianping could kill Blood Azura when he was at the peak of the core forging realm. Now that he had advanced to the Dharma power stage, He Shiyun did not think that he was a match for him. However, the reason why He Shiyun looked for Lu Ping was actually very simple. Xiang Lu Laozu was already injured. As long as He Shiyun held Lu Tianping back, when Zhang Shi and Dong Kuan Laozu joined forces to take care of Xiang Lu Laozu, and the Sea Bell would return to the Blue Sea sect, they would have won this battle. Of course, when that time came, if Lu Tianping still did not know what was good for him and retreated, even if he could not kill him, he would make him suffer. It would be best if this greatest talent of Zhenling was cut off from his path of advancement. Zhang Shi naturally didn't know what He Shiyun was thinking, but he still refused without the slightest hesitation. What did that mean? It meant that He Shiyun, couldn't even wait for Zhang Shi and Patriarch Dong Kuan to join forces and defeat Xiang Lu. Was Lu Tianping really that strong? He Shiyun then looked at Wang Shiqing, who was seriously injured and struggling to float on the surface of the sea. He remembered the scene of Lu Ping subduing Wang Shiqing with one move, and his heart palpitated for no reason. He raised the Dharma treasure in his hand and hurriedly attacked Xiang Lu Laozu, who was already in a fierce battle with Dong Kuan Laozu. The long sword in Zhang Shi's hand shot towards Lu Ping, but he said, "Today is a lucky day. Our sect wants to take back the Sea Bell, but I did not expect that you would even send over the thin water-flowing sword. I heard that the Cloud Sail is also with you. This time, all of Laozu's relics will be returned to their rightful owners." Lu Ping laughed involuntarily and said, "Senior Zhang, are you a little too confident in yourself? Do you really think that you can get these things from me so easily?" Zhang Shi snorted coldly and said, "Why don't you try and find out? Previously, you were able to withstand my great waves washing away the sand, swordsmanship. I think that after advancing to the Dharma stage, you must have formed your own natural great spells. I just don't know how many of my natural great spells you can withstand." Lu Ping combined his swords, and with the blood-orange sword, they once again created sparks in the sky. Then, his face turned serious and he said, "Senior, please enlighten me." Zhang Shi did not say much. With a flick of the blood-orange sword, the sword chi that filled the sky was like an omnipresent gale. Formless giant waves surged and rushed towards Lu Ping. Natural great spell, sword technique of high wind and waves. Lu Ping's two swords stirred and layers of seawater surged up, colliding with Zhang Shi's invisible sword wolf. Waves of vital energy and sword chi collided, causing the powers of both sides to cancel each other out. However, the entire sea started to shake, as if the endless power had been transferred to the seawater. Lu Ping also used his natural great spell, Thousand Snow Sword Technique. Seeing this, Zhang Shi straightened his palms and pushed forward. Previously, Lu Ping had seen this great spell from Dongkuan Laozu, adding fuel to the fire. The sword technique of high wind and waves that was originally starting to weaken suddenly received a boost and surged again, suppressing the Thousand Snow Sword technique. Similarly, Lu Ping remained unfazed. Suddenly, 1,000 waves surged into the sky and a wave of swordsmanship instantly crushed Zhang Shi's swordsmanship wave. Then, the swordsmanship wave surged towards Zhang Shi. The originally calm Zhang Shi's expression finally changed. Chapter 965. Counting from the moment Zhang Shi tried to stop Lu Ping from subduing Wang Shiqing, during the battle, Zhang Shi had cast a total of 3 great innate techniques: great waves washing away the sand, high winds and turbulent waves, and adding fuel to the waves. However, Lu Ping had also consecutively displayed the seeping water sword technique, the Thousand Snow Sword technique, and the Great River Flowing East Sword Technique, which were his three great magical powers. What made Zhang Xi's expression change was not only because Lu Ping, who had just entered the Dharma stage, was able to condense three great magical powers, but also because the last great magical power, the Great River Flowing East Sword Technique, had actually crushed his swordsmanship magical powers in one fell swoop and was mightily counterattacking him. This was not something that a practitioner of the early Dharma stage could do. Zhang Xi swept his sword horizontally, and a color that could only be seen when water and sky met suddenly appeared in front of Zhang Xi and behind him. It was as if Zhang Xi was suddenly standing at the edge of the sky and the edge of the sea. The Great River Flowing East Sword Technique was slashed horizontally by an orange-red sword light that resembled the sunset glow. Although the sword light that resembled the sunset glow was somewhat weakened, it continued to cut through the air towards Lu Ping's waist. Lu Ping laughed coldly and said, "The ocean and skyline great magical power. The vast sea sword technique is only yours." After saying that, the thin water flowing sword slashed horizontally, and the same strange scene of the ocean and sky meeting flashed behind Lu Ping. The same sword light flashed horizontally, and the thin water-flowing sword's two sword lights collided with Zhang Xi's sword light, and the three of them were annihilated at the same time. Zhang Xi had long been shocked to the point of numbness by this junior practitioner in front of him today, and he said bitterly, "How did you master the vast sea sword technique?" The thin water unstoppable sword rose up slowly on both sides of Lu Ping. Lu Ping smiled and said, "Senior Zhang, you must have forgotten that with the thin water unstoppable sword in my hands, I would naturally be able to learn the vast ocean sword technique." Zhang Xi was stunned when he heard that. Dunkoan Laozu, who was fighting with Xiang Lu Laozu in the distance, said, "Founding Master Vast Sea recorded the art of the vast sea in the thin water flowing sword and passed it on to our sect. 3,000 years ago, the thin water flowing sword was lost, but our sect kept a copy of the art of the vast sea. After a long time, except for the first generation of cultivators in our sect, no one knows that the original cultivation method of the art of the vast sea is hidden in the thin water-flowing sword." Lu Ping laughed involuntarily and said, "So it turns out that Senior Zhang doesn't know that the true inheritance of your sect is actually hidden within these two flying swords." Zhang Xi snorted coldly. "If that's the case, I'll return the flying sword to its rightful owner." Zhang Xi held the blood-orange sword vertically in front of his chest. A blood-orange sword gleam shot into the sky, and the entire world seemed to be dyed in the color of blood. "Since you already know the art of the vast sea and have mastered the straight line of the sea and sky, then you should be familiar with the supreme sword technique of the art of the vast sea. I just don't know to what extent you have mastered this supreme sword technique." Although Lu Ping had dabbled in the art of the vast sea and had mastered the straight line of the sea and sky, it was not his natural power of divinity. The reason why he could take on Zhang Xi's natural power of the straight line of the sea and sky was because this sword technique had been greatly weakened when he cut off the great river flows east. However, Zhang Xi had clearly condensed the four basic great divine powers of the art of the vast sea into the divine power seeds, and became his natural power of divinity. Although Zhang Xi said that he wanted to see the art of the vast sea that Lu Ping had mastered, but Lu Ping was not stupid enough to use his own weakness to attack his opponent's strength. The execution of supreme power usually brought about a huge astronomical phenomenon. Just like now, the blood-orange sword gleam shot into the sky, and the surrounding space was dyed in the color of blood from the sword gleam in Zhang Xi's hand. Even though the surging waves on the surface of the sea would immediately merge into the sea after entering the space that was enveloped by the blood gleam, and the entire surface of the sea instantly became calm, like a mirror. However, Lu Ping could feel the hidden undercurrent from the calm surface of the sea. It was like a hidden monster that could attack at any time. The art of the vast sea's natural power of divinity swordsmanship, difficult to calm the vast sea. Lu Ping's face was solemn, and he quickly retreated. However, the blood gleam continued to stretch as Lu Ping retreated, and it always enveloped Lu Ping in the blood gleam. "It's useless. What can you do if you can escape to the ends of the world when you are the target of the supreme power?" Zhang Shi chuckled and pointed the blood-orange sword at Lu Ping from afar. A blood gleam flashed and disappeared. When it appeared again, it was already in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping dodged to the side and suddenly realized that there was another blood gleam in the sea below the previous blood gleam. Mirror image? The blood gleam in the sea suddenly broke through the surface of the sea and drew a symmetrical arc with the previous blood gleam from both sides, stabbing towards Lu Ping. However, when the blood gleam broke through the surface of the sea, there were no ripples on the surface of the sea. It was still as calm as a mirror. Lu Ping brandished his swords and slashed at the two blood-red rays. The two blood-red rays shattered into countless specks of light that filled the sky. However, these light fragments were like seeds. Then, they stretched and expanded, forming flashing blood gleam sword chi. At the same time, the shadows of the blood gleam sword chi that were reflected in the sea also emerged from the surface of the sea at the same time. The blood gleam sword chi in the entire world suddenly doubled, almost filling the entire world. There was no place for Lu Ping to hide. Lu Ping's expression was solemn, but there was no panic on his face. Facing the blood gleam sword chi that came from all directions, Lu Ping's dual flying swords suddenly twisted, and pairs of sword lights separated from the long flowing swords. With Lu Ping as the center, the sword auras multiplied exponentially. In the blink of an eye, 129,600 sword auras surged around Lu Ping and collided with the blood-red sword auras. The entire world was stirred up by the overwhelming sword auras and sword auras. The vibrations in the air caused pitch-black cracks to appear in the air, and countless shattered space fragments were annihilated along with the sword auras and sword auras around them. Patriarch Xiang Lu and Patriarch Dong Kuan had already stopped fighting at the sight of such a tyrannical and brutal scene. He Shiyun risked her life and rushed to the front. She brought Wang Shiqing, who was floating on the surface of the sea, out and hid far away. At this point, the battle between the two sides was already meaningless. Xiang Lu Laozu had the ocean bell. Even if he could not defeat Dongkuan Laozu and He Shiyun, the two of them would not be able to do anything to the bell's defense. Without the others holding him back, Xiang Lu Laozu could use the ocean bell to break out of the encirclement at any time. The reason why he remained here was to wait for the result of the battle between Lu Ping and Zhang Shi, so that he could give Jinling an explanation in the future. Not to mention, the might that Lu Ping had displayed could practically shake the entire North Sea, so Xiang Lu Laozu could not and did not dare to leave. At this moment, the world that seemed to have turned into a world of swords suddenly changed again. It was as if a god had placed a stirrer in the world, and the entire world of swords began to stir. Xiang Lu Laozu did not understand what was happening, but Dongkuan Laozu and He Shiyun, who were at the side, looked at each other in shock. This was not a scene formed by the supreme technique of the ocean sword technique, so there was only one possibility. This was Lu Tianping launching a counterattack. The defense of the seeping sword technique could simply be described as airtight, but the blood-colored sword lights that were derived from the supreme ability unflattened vast ocean were even more boundless, especially on the surface of the sea that was as flat as a mirror. Every time a sword light left a reflection on the surface of the mirror, a new sword light would immediately emerge from beneath the surface of the sea. However, Lu Ping's use of the seeping sword technique was only a delaying tactic. Just when the endless sword gleams could not threaten Lu Ping for the time being, the thin water unending sword had already been raised again. In the core space, the Dharma form of the dragon spat out the pure yang pearl from its mouth, and then a stream of origin essence was spat on the pure yang pearl. Lines of runes began to flash, and the pure yang pearl shone with a bluish-purple light. The countless seeping sword chi surrounding Lu Ping began to gather towards the thin water unending sword, and a huge whirlpool of sword gleams began to form with Lu Ping as the center. Moreover, the range of the whirlpool became wider and wider, and countless sword chi were sucked into it. When the 129,600 sword gleams were sucked into the whirlpool, the entire world that was filled with sword gleams began to shake. Countless blood-red sword gleams attempted to attack the whirlpool, disrupting the expansion of the whirlpool. However, without exception, they were all swallowed up by the whirlpool. The powerful sword chi that the dark gleams carried was instead assimilated and used by the whirlpool, causing the whirlpool to expand once again, and its power gradually increased as well. Zhang Shi had already felt that something was wrong. He attempted to retract the blood-red sword gleams, wanting to regain control of the innate supreme power of restless vast ocean. However, he suddenly realized that the sky full of blood-red sword gleams was breaking away from his control, like moths flying into a flame, one after another, towards the whirlpool of sword techniques. Zhang Shi could already feel the unparalleled power in the whirlpool of sword techniques, which was like mushrooms after the rain. This was the power of a supreme power, and it was the power of an innate supreme power. He was only at the early Dharma stage. How could he condense an innate supreme power? Furthermore, it was obvious that the power and profoundness of this supreme divine ability was above that of the vast sea sword technique. What kind of supreme divine ability and sword technique was this? How many basic divine abilities did he use to finally condense the seed of such a powerful supreme divine ability? Zhang Shi seemed to have an illusion that in the face of this supreme divine power, all the sword techniques and divine powers in the world should be disintegrated and worshipped. They should all return to their roots and take it as their duty to integrate into it. The supreme power of swordsmanship. At this moment, it finally displayed its unparalleled power in the world of cultivators. For the first time, Zhang Shi finally revealed a look of horror in the face of Lu Ping's power. On the surface of the sea in the southwest of the Northwest Sea, the senior sword gleam that covered a radius of thousands of feet finally collapsed. A beam of blood-red light flew out from within and landed beside Dongkuan Laozu. "Shi, how are you?" Dongkuan Laozu asked anxiously as he looked at Zhang Shi's abnormally bright red face. Zhang Shi moved his lips and said, "Let's go." Then, a stream of blood shot out from his mouth. Dongkuan Laozu's expression changed drastically. He reached out to support Zhang Shi and flew in the direction of the vast ocean sect without looking back. He Shiyun, who was at the side, saw this and knew the result. She reached out to carry Wang Shiqing on her shoulder and also flew away. Before Xianglo Laozu could recover from his shock, Lu Ping was already walking towards him from the collapsing world of sword gleams. In the Battle of the Northwest Sea, the early Dharma adept Zhenling, Lu Tianping, defeated the mid-Dharma adept Zhang Shi of the vast ocean sect with his innate supreme power. Zhang Shi escaped with serious injuries, and Lu Tianping Laozu's name shook the North Sea. Chapter 966. Zhang Shi, among the second generation of North Sea cultivators, was second only to Jiang Tianlin in terms of cultivation potential. His swordsmanship was also known as the best among the second generation of North Sea cultivators. After advancing to the mid-Dharma stage, he had mastered the vast sea sword technique of the vast sea sect. Yet, he had been defeated just like that. Without any suspense, he had been defeated by Lu Tianping. Among the third generation of North Sea cultivators, he was known as the best in terms of cultivation. His swordsmanship was second to none in North Sea, and he was able to master the best in terms of swordsmanship after advancing to the early Dharma stage. In the Battle of the Northwest Sea, Lu Tianping Laozu, who had disappeared from North Sea for 10 years, had announced his return. Zhenling was ranked 14th, and Laozu, the first Dharma disciple among the third generation, walked to the front of the stage. With 3 generations of Dharma powers under the same roof, Zhenling's sect had fulfilled the first requirement to become a large sect. The news of Lu Ping's victory over Zhang Shi was like a sudden clap of thunder. Not only did it shock the entire North Sea cultivation world, but it also affected the East Sea cultivation world and the Central Mainland cultivation world. Xiang Lu Laozu looked at Lu Ping with a complicated expression and said, "Brother Tianping, today's battle has brought glory to North Sea. Xiang Lu will congratulate you in advance." Strictly speaking, Xiang Lu Laozu should be of the same generation as Tian Fan and Tian Shui, the 2 Laozu. However, this time, he lowered his stance and congratulated Lu Ping with the tone of someone of the same generation. Other than because he was under Zhenling's protection, it was also because he wanted to show respect to Lu Ping. Lu Ping smiled and said, "Senior, You flatter me. Actually, this time, Senior joining our sect is enough to shock North Sea. Xiang Lu Laozu waved his hand and said with a smile, You can't compare. You can't compare. The old man only relied on this sea bell. After a pause, Xiang Lu Laozu said, If that's the case, shouldn't we leave this place as soon as possible? The battle just now caused quite a commotion. I'm afraid that some Dharma adepts have already noticed the commotion here and will rush over to check it out soon. Lu Ping said, There's no hurry. Let's go to the bottom of the sea and take a look. Xiang Lu Laozu did not know what was going on, but he still followed behind Lu Ping and dove into the depths of the sea. From afar, Xiang Lu Laozu could see that there seemed to be something under a colorful light screen at the bottom of the sea. It looked like it was shivering. Xiang Lu Laozu looked at Lu Ping in amazement and said, It's so deep at the bottom of the sea, and my friend Lu Ping's divine will can actually detect that someone is hiding. The old man is really impressed. Lu Ping laughed loudly and said, Senior, you've misunderstood. In fact, it was I who came here first to investigate a mine. I didn't expect to come across the matter of the sea sect besieging Senior. However, Lu Ping looked at the shivering 5 elements cloud glow robe and felt really helpless. At the bottom of the sea, even if Lu Ping and Zhang Shi's supreme power duel had reached here, the power would be weakened to the point where it could only stir up the mud at the bottom of the sea. Moreover, this 5 elements cloud glow robe was a spirit-nurturing treasure with 8 treasures. Most of its effects were on defense. How could it frighten Zhenren Xianwei, who was hiding under the 5 elements cloud glow robe, to such an extent? Moreover, other than defense, the 5 elements cloud glow robe also had the effect of hiding. But now, the hiding effect of the 5 elements robe was obviously not used. Instead, the 5 rays of light were like a lighthouse at the bottom of the sea. Fortunately, this battle was won by Lu Ping. If Lu Ping was really defeated and the sea sect's cultivators dived to the bottom of the sea to check, this guy would probably be exposed in front of them before they discovered him. Lu Ping kept the 5 elements cloud glow robe in a bad mood. When Zhenren Xianwei saw that the person who came was Lu Ping, the fear on his face immediately turned into a smile and he said, Junior Lu, I knew that you would definitely be able to return safe and sound. At this moment, Zhenren Xianwei then noticed Yang Lu Laozu, who was behind Lu Ping. That unparalleled aura surged, showing that this person was undoubtedly a Dharma phase Laozu. At this moment, Zhenren Xianwei then noticed that after the battle with Zhang Shi, Lu Ping's aura was temporarily unable to be concealed because of the true vitality fluctuation. Impressively, he was also in the Dharma phase. Zhenren Xianwei looked at Lu Ping as if he had seen a ghost. He suddenly stuttered and said, Lu Tianping, Master Laozu. Lu Ping hurriedly said, all right, senior brother, you can just call me junior brother. I believe you have heard of the name behind me. It is Senior Xiang Lu. You have met him first. Zhenren Xianwei had yet to recover from the sudden change in Lu Ping's identity. When he heard what was said, he only nodded at Xiang Lu Laozu and said, Greetings, Senior Xiang Lu. Xiang Lu Laozu saw that Zhenren Xianwei was like this, but he didn't mind. He just waved his hand and didn't say anything. Lu Ping pushed Zhenren Xianwei and said, Senior brother Xianwei, you can activate the pulse detection array. You have to be quick. There might be people coming here in a while. Zhenren Xianwei seemed to have woken up from a dream and said, Oh, hurry up, it will be done soon. But when he turned around, he was stunned. He then slowly turned his head back and said, Junior brother, who did you say this Laozu was? Lu Ping was defeated by this superb senior brother until he had no temper. So he said, You activate the array first. Zhenren Xianwei then obediently placed the spiritual stones around him again. Then, he condensed his true vitality and sent it into the core of the array. Boom! Another strong earthquake came from the depths of the sea. Enlightened being Xianwei regained his vigor in a short while. He shouted, Great, great! Another small scale or vein. At this time, Xiang Lu Laozu also saw something and asked, Senior brother, this is a mineral prospector? As expected of an old demon who had lived for nearly 1,000 years, his knowledge and experience were really great. Through Zhenren Xuanwei's identity as a mineral prospector and Lu Ping's extraordinary strength, Xiang Lu Laozu could even think of something. Lu Ping glanced at him and said, "That's right." Xiang Lu Laozu nodded thoughtfully and didn't say anything. Lu Ping waited for Zhenren Xianwei to erase the traces of the mineral vein exploration array at the bottom of the sea before he and Xiang Lu Laozu hurriedly dived towards Tianling Mountain from the bottom of the sea. Not long after the three of them left, a few rays of light flashed in the sky. First, there were core forging cultivators who came to investigate. Not long after, a few rays of light that cut through the space appeared on the sea surface one after another. A few Laozu also checked the nearby sea surface. Some even dived to the bottom of the sea to investigate, but other than knowing that there was an extremely fierce battle nearby, they ultimately found nothing and left not long after. On the way back to Tianling Mountain, Lu Ping asked Zhenren Xianwei, "How much do you think the mixed mineral reserves in the 3 mineral veins that you found are roughly?" Zhenren Xianwei pondered for a moment and said, "Now, we only confirm the existence of the mineral vein. If we want to know the exact reserves, we still have to wait until we excavate the ores and find out the direction of the branch veins. However, the reserves should at least be a quarter of that medium-sized mineral vein." Lu Ping said happily, "That's not a small amount." Then, Lu Ping thought of something again and smiled at Zhenren Xianwei. "I still have to congratulate you for pointing out 3 mineral veins in one go, 2 of which are small mineral veins. This time, you can be considered to have solidified your position as a mineral prospector. You can hold your head high." Zhenren Xianwei smiled so widely that his face was about to blossom. He said, "Isn't this all because of junior brother Lu's support?" When the three of them were still at the bottom of the sea, Lu Ping's Dharma idol had already returned to Tianling Mountain. He reported in detail the location of the mineral vein that Zhenren Xianwei had found, as well as the battle between Xiang Lu Laozu and the Azure Sea Sect's cultivators. Putting aside how Lu Tianling Laozu and the other Dharma idols of Jinling would react after learning that Lu Ping had heavily injured Wang Shiqing and defeated Zhang Shi, Lu Ping didn't want the sect to show any neglect. After all, Xiang Lu Laozu had a great reputation among the rogue cultivators. Lu Ping didn't want the sect to do anything out of line because of the Azure Sea Bell. In reality, Lu Ping was obviously worrying for nothing. Tian Xiang Laozu and Tian Ling Laozu, who were able to manage Zhenling to this extent, would not do something so stupid as to kill the goose that laid the golden eggs. When Lu Ping and Xiang Lu Laozu arrived at Tianling Mountain, all the Dharma idols of Tianling Mountain, under the leadership of Tian Xiang Laozu, came out to welcome Xiang Lu Laozu's arrival. This caused Xiang Lu Laozu to be extremely terrified, and he was overwhelmed by the favor. After the two sides met, it was inevitable for them to exchange greetings. Xiang Lu Laozu said to Tian Xiang Laozu, "This calamity is all thanks to the help of Brother Tianpet. This time, the old man has also obtained a place to rest. Mara's calamity is not over yet, so if there is anything that your sect needs, the old man will definitely do his best." Lu Ping could tell that Xiang Lu Laozu was actually testing Zhenling's attitude towards the Azure Sea Bell, and the other Zhenling Laozu could naturally tell as well. Tian Myriad Grand Master laughed and said, "Fellow Taoist Xiang, don't worry. You have the Songhai Bell with you. You will definitely need fellow Taoists' help. When the time comes, I'm afraid we will need fellow Taoists' help." Tian Ling Laozu also said, "Senior Xiang, you just need to focus on cultivating in our sect. The Azure Sea Bell is extremely important in dealing with Mara's calamity. Our sect will definitely protect you." From their words, it was obvious that they were also promising Xiang Lu Laozu that Jinling definitely had no intention of coveting the Azure Sea Bell. With the promise from Jinling's sect's great cultivator and the sect leader, the smile on Xiang Lu Laozu's face became even brighter. After the two sides exchanged greetings, Tian Shu led Xiang Lu Laozu to see the cave that was prepared for him. As for Tian Ling Laozu, he was also busy arranging the Jinling cultivators to secretly excavate the 3 mineral veins that Taoist Xianwei discovered in the Northwest Sea. On the other hand, Tian Xiang Grand Ancestor and the others stared at Lu Ping as if they were admiring a monstrous genius, or as if they were looking at a monster. Tian Xiang Laozu coughed and said, "All of you, come to my place." As soon as he finished speaking, Tian Xiang Laozu's silhouette disappeared. After that, Tian Fan, Tian Shui, Tian Kong, and the other Laozu also left one after another. Lu Ping followed behind Tian Feng and Laozu, heading towards Tian Xiang Laozu's cave. Chapter 967. In that case, during the battle in the Northwest Sea region, Zhang Shi had used 4 innate great divine abilities, and then used another innate supreme divine ability. It was the Azure Sea sect's direct lineage supreme sword art divine ability, Raging Ocean, which was formed from the fusion of the 4 innate great divine abilities as a basic divine ability. After listening to Lu Ping's explanation, Tianxiang Laozu said slowly, "Do you think that Zhang Shi still has other natural great spells that he has not used?" Hearing this, Lu Ping lowered his head and thought for a moment, as if recalling the previous battle between the two of them. Then, he shook his head and said, "I don't know. This Zhang Shi is known as the second-generation disciple of the North Sea, second only to Uncle Tianlin. He usually hides his strength very well. If I hadn't met him today, I'm afraid that the North Sea training world would not even know that he has advanced to the mid-Dharma stage. However, from the battle between me and him, even if Zhang Shi has some natural great spells that he has not used, it is unlikely that he has any more natural great spells." Elder Tianfeng sucked in a breath of cold air and said, Stop, wait a moment. It's impossible to have a second natural supreme mystique. It's already tiring for us to form a natural supreme mystique avatar, but you guys are already counting down the number of supreme mystiques. Since when did natural supreme mystiques become so common among the Dharma adepts of the North Sea? Tianfeng Laozu had advanced to the Dharma stage for decades, but his level of practice was not even close to the mid-Dharma stage. Not long ago, he heard that with the help of Tianxiang Laozu, he had successfully condensed a natural great spell. He was originally feeling very good about himself, but who would have thought that the battle between Lu Ping and Zhang Shi would have to use natural great spells? The condensation of a natal supreme divine ability required at least 3 basic natal great divine abilities. However, Zhang Shi's natal supreme sword art, Unstoppable Vast Ocean, was formed by 4 basic natal great divine abilities. How could Ancestor Heavenly Wind not feel so discouraged? Tianshan Laozu smiled bitterly and said, "Senior brother Tianfeng, at least you managed to condense a natal great magic power, but I'm stuck at the last step. I'm still 1 step away from condensing the seed of magic power." The condensation of the natal great magical power was the easiest when a practitioner was about to advance to the Dharma stage. However, it was extremely difficult to start accumulating remarkable power talismans before advancing to the Dharma stage. After advancing to the Dharma stage, it was extremely easy to accumulate remarkable power talismans, but it was extremely difficult to condense remarkable power talismans into remarkable power seeds and inscribe them on the Dharma power. The two could be said to be opposites. The former process was difficult, but the result was easy, while the latter process was easy, but the result was difficult. Tian Kong Laozu looked at Lu Ping, shook his head and said, "Monster! The old man has been practicing for hundreds of years, and now that he has advanced to the mid-Dharma stage, he has only condensed 3 natural great spell seeds. Originally, he wanted to condense these 3 seeds into one to form a paramount great spell. However, he has only advanced to the Dharma stage for 5 years, and his paramount great spell has already leaped to the next level, beating up mid-Dharma adepts." Lu Ping was extremely embarrassed by the comments of Laozu. Initially, Tianxiang Laozu was discussing the depth of Zhang Shi's abilities, but the other Dharma adepts were obviously more interested in Lu Ping, who had severely injured Zhang Shi and caused him to vomit blood. Seeing this, Tianxiang Laozu coughed and stopped the discussion. He said, "Ever since the Songhai sect merged, their abilities have improved by leaps and bounds. Now, they should have 10 Dharma adepts. These years, there has been news from the Songhai sect that the Dongji sect is about to advance to become a great Dharma adept. Regardless of whether this news is true or not, just the increase in their abilities alone would make even Xianling's sect pale in comparison. That Zhang Shi has quietly advanced to the mid-Dharma stage and achieved a paramount great spell. It seems like our sect has been too arrogant all these years, thinking that none of the sects in the North Sea can be a match for us, but we did not know that the Songhai sect has been waiting for revenge. Tian Xiang Laozu seemed to have a tacit understanding with Tian Xiang Laozu beforehand. Just as Tian Xiang Laozu finished speaking, Tian Xiang Laozu continued, "What Senior Tian Xiang said is right. Although our sect has frequently encountered attacks from the various sects, the strength of the North Sea is still weak. Although our sect is strong, we can only dominate the North Sea for a period of time. Compared to the strength of the sects outside the North Sea, all of them are too far behind us." Tian Shuelaozu, on the other hand, was thinking about Lu Ping. He asked again, "That Wang Shiqing this time, it was wise of you not to kill him. However, you should be aware of his injuries. Also, that Zhang Shi was injured by you. How do you think his injuries are?" Lu Ping muttered to himself for a moment before replying, that Wang Shiqing's path of advancement has already been severed by this disciple. As for that Zhang Shi, although his injuries are severe, it hasn't reached his core. This disciple estimates that if an alchemist grandmaster were to help, he would need at least 3 to 5 years to recover. When Tian Feng, Tian Shan, and Tian Kong heard how ruthless Lu Ping was, cutting off Wang Shiqing's path of advancement, their faces were filled with astonishment. However, Tian Shuelaozu praised, "Good. Sparing his life is already giving Azure Sea sect a lot of face. If we don't leave some marks on him, wouldn't we have suffered a huge loss this time?" Tian Xiang Laozu sighed lightly and said, "Forget it. Although his methods are a little ruthless, since our sect wants to rise up, other than our own hard work, we have to suppress other opponents as well. Azure Sea sect has been recuperating all these years. It's about time to suppress them." Tian Fan Laozu nodded his head and said, "Previously, due to the matter of the Northwest Sea's mineral vein, the alliance between the various sects in the Northern Sea has already been broken. Now that little brat Lu has attacked recklessly, although he was a little rash, he has also displayed our sect's strength and potential to the various sects in the Northern Sea sect. Currently, there isn't a single sect in the Northern Sea sect that is willing to openly stand on the opposite side of our sect. This is our sect's chance." Just as Zhenling Laozu had decided on the plan to suppress Azure Sea sect with a few words, Tian Shu Laozu suddenly rushed in. "We just received news from the Devil region. In Xianchu has been seen in the Devil region." Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. Then, he heard Tian Shan Laozu say anxiously, "Oh no, he's going after his uncle, Aou. This kid is too rash. How can he go to the Deep Sea Devil region?" "Don't panic." Tian Ling Laozu gestured to Tian Shan Laozu to calm down. Then, he turned to Tian Shu Laozu and asked, "Is the source of the news reliable? Are there other sects who know about this?" Tian Shu Laozu had to admire Tian Ling Laozu's judgment. He nodded and said, "The source is reliable. Many monster race cultivators have seen it. By now, all the sects in the Northern Sea have probably received the news." Tian Ling Laozu said, "Send an order to the Dark Hall. Send more people to hide outside the Devil region. If they can't identify the person, don't rescue him. If he's not being pursued, don't rescue him. Don't contact him. At the same time, increase the surveillance on Xianling sect." Tian Shu Laozu excused himself. Tian Feng Laozu said, "Junior Martial Sister, do you think the news is wrong?" The Heavenly Spirit Ancestor nodded and said, "That's right. From the fact that Xianchu has been hiding in the North Sea for 10 years, every single time he makes a move, he has a thorough plan and strict arrangements. Before the incident, when has anyone noticed his tracks? In order to avenge his parents, he was able to endure for dozens of years until his cultivation was strong enough to kill Dao Shi. With this kind of forbearance, how could he easily enter the Devil region for revenge? This time, he exposed his tracks so easily. It's obviously against his usual style. I suspect that Xianchu is going to attack Xianling sect again." Tian Shuelaozu said, "This kid is too stubborn. He's used to venting his anger on others. Dao Shi killed his parents back then. It seems like he's holding a grudge against the entire Xianling sect." Tian Xiang Laozu said, "Let's disperse for now. Recently, many forces in the Northern Sea have taken the initiative to contact forces from the outside world. The old man suspects that they're here for the distribution of the spirit stone mine on Frost Island. Everyone, be careful when you go down there. Lu Ping walked out of Tian Xiang Laozu's cave in a hurry and saw Yao Yong walking towards him. Ever since Tian Cheng Laozu's corps was severely injured during the battle on Frost Island and lost the hope of advancing to the mid-Dharma stage, Yao Yong was like a mad bull. He tirelessly searched for all kinds of ways to recover Tian Cheng Laozu's damaged core essence so that Tian Cheng Laozu would have a chance to advance to the mid-Dharma stage again. It was said that during this period of time, Yao Yong had asked almost every alchemist in the Elixir Pavilion. Tianlu Laozu had even been so annoyed by Yao Yong that he hid out of his cave. Yao Yong even secretly went to the Central Plains, hoping to gain something from Tianqin Laozu. Unfortunately, he still ended up with nothing. As a good friend of Yao Yong, Lu Ping, this alchemist grandmaster, should have been his first target of harassment. However, Lu Ping had been cultivating in seclusion and rarely came out. Moreover, Tian Cheng Laozu's injury was something that Lu Ping could not do. Yao Yong had come to look for him several times, but every time, it was Lily who explained to him. Lu Ping had never met him. This time, it was obviously because Yao Yong had heard the news and specially rushed over to block the entrance of Tian Xiang Laozu's cave. Tian Ling Laozu and the others saw Yao Yong coming. Although they looked calm, they couldn't help but speed up their pace. It seemed that Yao Yong had annoyed these Laozu quite a lot. When Yao Yong saw Lu Ping, he asked directly, "Have you heard of the Samling 5 Elements leaf? Is the legend about him true or false?" Lu Ping looked at Yao Yong in a daze. Even the previous Laozu slowed down and waited for Lu Ping's answer. They were all overjoyed in their hearts. Could it be that Tian Cheng Laozu's injury could really be cured? Before, the 3 grandmasters of our sect all denied the possibility of Tian Cheng Laozu's recovery. Seeing the anxious look on Yao Yong's face, Lu Ping said tactfully, "This thing has only been mentioned once in the legend. No one in the cultivation world has ever seen such a treasure. However, according to the records of Taoist Gui's lectures, it is said that this thing can heal the origin of injuries." Yao Yong obviously didn't understand what Lu Ping meant. He was overjoyed and said, "Really?" The other Laozu obviously understood what Lu Ping meant. They sighed slightly and quickened their pace, but it was much heavier. Lu Ping could only shake his head and say, "Senior brother Xian Yong, since the 7th patriarch opened the sky, no one in the cultivation world has ever seen such a treasure. I even doubt that Taoist Gui really said this. Maybe it was just a story made up by later generations. This is why Martial Uncle Tianlu, Martial Uncle Tianqin, and I have never mentioned this thing to you." "No." Yao Yong's breathing suddenly became rapid. He said, "Someone got this thing from the 7 Stars Palace." Chapter 968. Hearing this, Lu Ping didn't show much joy on his face. Obviously, he didn't believe it. He frowned and asked, "Since no one in the cultivation world has ever seen such a treasure, how can the person who obtained it be sure that this is the Samling 5 Elements leaf that only Taoist Gui mentioned in the cultivation world?" Yao Yong saw through Lu Ping and said, "You don't believe it?" When the Crystal Palace cultivator opened the box, the jade slip inside introduced that it was the seed of the Samling 5 Elements leaf. In the hands of the Crystal Palace? And it's just a seed? The few Laozu cultivators who had stopped also frowned, and Lu Ping's frown deepened. Lu Ping pondered for a moment, as if he was thinking about something, but also as if there was something he couldn't say. In the end, he sighed and said, "Do you know who has it and where it is now?" Yao Yong shook his head and said, "It was in the hands of a blood condensation realm disciple of the Crystal Palace who entered the 7 Stars Grotto Heaven. After finding out that it was the Samling 5 Elements leaf, the disciple handed it over to the sect. I think it should be in the hands of a high-level cultivator of the Crystal Palace now, and I'm afraid it will be sent back to the East Sea soon." Lu Ping thought that Yao Yong already had the confidence to ask for his help, but he didn't expect that Yao Yong was just a headless fly. Apart from confirming the effect of the Samling 5 Elements leaf, it seemed that Yao Yong wanted Lu Ping to make a decision for him. Yao Yong hesitated for a moment and said, "I guess the Crystal Palace cultivator, who obtained the Samling Five Elements leaf, is still in the North Sea, in Xianling sect. Yao Yong had made it very clear. But robbing the Crystal Palace, just when Lu Ping didn't know what to do, Fornak's cauldron forefather heard the news and walked over. With a sullen face, he said, "What else do you want? You two still want to rob the Crystal Palace?" Lu Ping saw that Yao Yong's face was red. After all, there seemed to be no other way to solve this problem. However, the risk was too great. One mistake could bring disaster to Zhenling. The other Laozu cultivators also looked at them, and even Celestial Phenomenon Laozu came out. Obviously, Laozu didn't agree with Yao Yong's words. However, Celestial Phenomenon Laozu's situation was really pitiful, and Yao Yong was filial, so they didn't reprimand him directly. Fornax Laozu sighed, looked at Lu Ping, and then said to Yao Yong, "Do you know what Taoist Gui said about the Samling Five Elements leaf?" Yao Yong shook his head and listened to Fornax Laozu repeat the information about the Samling Five Elements leaf that Taoist Gui said in his sermon. At that time, Zhao Daoren mistakenly took a poisonous pill made by Taoist Gui, and his cultivation was damaged. He hid in the secret land of the fallen earth to heal his injuries. Later, during Taoist Gui's sermon, a cultivator who was listening to Zhao Daoren's lecture came to question Taoist Gui. Since it was an accident, why didn't Taoist Gui, as the founder of alchemy, try to cure Zhao Daoren's injuries, but let Zhao Daoren recuperate in the secret land of the fallen earth? Taoist Gui also said that the poison of the poisonous pill he made was unparalleled in the world, but even he didn't have an antidote for it. Fortunately, Zhao Daoren had a profound cultivation, so the poison would not harm his life. However, if his origin was damaged, it would be difficult for him to recover. The cultivator then asked about the method to heal the origin injury. Taoist Gui hesitated for a moment, then said the Samling Five Elements leaf. However, according to Taoist Gui's record about the Samling Five Elements leaf passed down from ancient times, the conditions for the formation and growth of the Samling Five Elements leaf were extremely harsh, even to the point that it was almost impossible to exist. The three spirits and five elements leaves were born from the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The place where they were born and grew first needed a place with extremely dense spiritual energy. Generally speaking, it needed at least a large spiritual vein to support the density of spiritual energy to meet the minimum requirements for their growth. However, this was only a minor detail. The real impossibility was that the Samling Five Elements leaf needed to be formed in a place where the five elements of heaven and earth gathered, and these five elements of heaven and earth had to be at the same level. The so-called Samling referred to the three levels of heaven, earth, and profound. The so-called five elements referred to the five elements of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. Although the Samling Five Elements leaf could heal a cultivator's damaged origin, it came at a great price. According to Taoist Gui, a low-grade profound five elements leaf could heal an early-stage blood condensation cultivator's origin. A mid-grade profound five elements leaf could heal a mid-stage blood condensation cultivator's origin, and a high-grade profound five elements leaf could heal a late-stage blood condensation cultivator's origin. Similarly, to heal a core forging cultivator's damaged origin, one would need to use earth-grade five elements leaf according to the cultivator's cultivation level, and the nourishment period would be 100 years. However, once a cultivator's cultivation level reached the Dharma manifestation stage, one would need to use sky-grade heaven, mid, and lower-grade heaven and earth treasures according to their cultivation level, and the nourishment period would be 1,000 years. After listening to Fornax Laozu's explanation, Yao Yong's face turned pale. Even if he could snatch the Samling Five Elements leaf from the Crystal Palace cultivators without exposing his identity, and even if he could find all five elemental earth-grade heaven and earth treasures, heaven and earth Laozu wouldn't wait 1,000 years. Yao Yong looked at the silent Lu Ping. Obviously, Lu Ping already knew the method to cultivate the Samling Five Elements leaf, but he didn't say it. Obviously, he didn't want to hurt Yao Yong's feelings. So, Yao Yong silently bowed to Fornax Laozu, turned around, and left. Fornax Laozu sighed, turned around, and left, shaking his head. The other Laozu had already disappeared. Lu Ping wanted to stop Yao Yong, but Yao Yong left very quickly, as if he had used a flying spell to leave Tianling Mountain. In a mysterious place in the North Sea, after a flash of light, two cultivators suddenly appeared behind the light. Among the two, one looked to be in his 30s, and the other was a cultivator in his 40s. From the clothes they were wearing, it was obvious that they were a master and a servant. The middle-aged cultivator was obviously the young cultivator in his 30s, and from the surging aura that the two gave off when they appeared on the teleportation portal, they were obviously Dharma adepts, and the middle-aged servant's cultivation level was even at the mid-Dharma stage. An early Dharma adept who had been waiting in front of the teleportation portal hurriedly came forward and bowed. "Sir, your presence in the North Sea brings light to our humble Four Seas sect." The young man waved his hand and asked him to stand up. He said pleasantly, "Leader Zhang, it's our first time in the North Sea, and we're not familiar with the people and the place. We'll have to trouble you to teach us." Leader Zhang hurriedly said, "Sir, you're too kind. How could I dare to teach you? If you have any questions, I'll definitely tell you everything I know. But this is not the place to talk. I've already prepared a place to stay in the sect. Please, sir and senior one, move." Although the young man looked calm, his eyes were obviously satisfied with Leader Zhang's attitude. As he followed Leader Zhang out, he said, "Then tell me about the recent events in the North Sea." "Oh, yes, there should be a Zhenling in the North Sea, and this sect has a disciple called Lu Xianping. I wonder if Leader Zhang has heard of him? This person once made a big name for himself in the Central Plains, and I'm very interested. Why don't you tell me more about him?" Lu Ping went all the way down to the peak of Tianling Mountain. Then, after some thought, he walked towards his cave abode in Tianling Mountain, Tingxiao Manor. From afar, he saw Hu Lily anxiously waiting for him at the entrance of the cave abode. Lu Ping walked up to her and said, "Is there something urgent?" Hu Lily nodded and handed Lu Ping a specially made telepathic sword. She said, "Take a look. You've said before that if I receive this kind of sword, I'll give it to you as soon as possible." Lu Ping's expression turned serious. After receiving the sword, he made a few special hand seals, and the restriction on the surface of the sword collapsed on its own. Lu Ping's divine sense penetrated the sword to check its contents. After a while, Lu Ping said, "I'm going to secretly leave Tianling Mountain for a while, but it shouldn't be too long." "Right. How's the mirror image formation coming along? During this time, you have to think of a way to make people think that I was injured after my battle with Zhang Shi, and that I'm now in closed-door cultivation to heal. However, I still have to show myself at appropriate times. I can't let people suspect that I'm using closed-door cultivation as an excuse to secretly go out." Hu Lily was a little troubled. The formation can be set up, but it can only do limited repetitive movements. If it's too frequent, people will see through it. Lu Ping nodded and praised, "That's already very good. I heard that even Martial Uncle Xianchen has a headache with this formation. It doesn't matter if the movements are simple. In any case, you don't need to come into contact with people. You just need to let people see you from afar at the right time." Hu Lily thought for a while and said, "I'll do my best." Lu Ping turned around and was about to leave when he suddenly thought of something. He turned around and asked, "Is there any formation that's so exquisite that many people can't tell it's real from fake, and even divine sense can't detect it?" Hu Lily said blankly, "I don't know. Maybe there is. But at least it doesn't exist in the North Sea." Lu Ping nodded and said, "That's it. It seems like someone is secretly helping him." Hu Lily asked tentatively, "Was that sound transmission sword from Yin Xianchu secretly asking you to go out?" Although Hu Lily didn't often ask about Lu Ping's private affairs, Lu Ping usually didn't deliberately hide it. Moreover, Hu Lily was an extremely intelligent person, so she could guess a thing or two from Lu Ping's daily speech and behavior. Lu Ping smiled and nodded. He said, "Don't worry, there shouldn't be any danger." Hu Lily said, "There isn't any danger yet. Lu Shuheng's death 5 years ago was related to you, right?" Lu Ping was speechless. "You can even guess that?" Lu Ping snuck out of Tianling Mountain, dived into the water, and headed south. 1,000 miles away, he came ashore on a barren reef. He scanned the area with his divine sense and pointed at a cluster of rocks in the northeast. He smiled and said, "Junior Marshal Brother Ian, Junior Marshal Brother G, How long are you two planning to hide? Chapter 969. Ji Xian walked out from the rubble and asked curiously, "How did you know I was here as well?" In Xuanchu's voice sounded out from the shadows of a pile of rubble. His divine sense is extremely tyrannical, and even my concealment secret technique can't escape his detection. He had already sensed our location the moment he came ashore. Lu Ping looked at the two of them and said with a smile, "Actually, before I came here, I had already guessed that Junior Brother Ji had probably already contacted Junior Brother Ian. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Junior Brother Ian to use the tactic of luring the tiger away from the mountain near the deep-sea demon region. I think it's because Junior Brother Ji has mastered the puppet secret technique." Ji Xian immediately said complacently, "I was just about to tell you about this. I didn't expect you to have already guessed it." Lu Ping said with a smile, "Don't forget that you still have my azure willow tree with you. My avatar still has to rely on you." When Ji Xian heard the azure willow tree, a trace of reluctance actually appeared on his face as he said, "Speaking of that azure willow tree, it's an 8,000-year-old spirit tree. I wonder where you found such a rare treasure of the heavens and the earth." With that, Ji Xian handed over a foot-long puppet to Lu Ping. The puppet's appearance vaguely resembled Lu Ping's. Lu Ping said exaggeratedly, "It can't be. Just the trunk of that azure willow tree is 10 feet long. You only made such a large puppet to be my avatar. Isn't it too obvious that you're cutting corners?" Ji Xian immediately said angrily, "What do you know? If it wasn't for the fact that your azure willow tree was old enough and heavy enough, I'm afraid it would be good enough to make a 3-inch puppet for you. This was refined from the main trunk and most of the main roots of your azure willow tree." Lu Ping's divine sense had already sensed the extraordinary power contained within this foot-long puppet, so he said with a smile, "You only used the main trunk and the roots. Where did the other branches and leaves go?" Ji Xian said righteously, "Although the azure willow tree is rare, if I were to forcefully use its branches to refine this puppet, its quality would be lowered. Besides, in order to make this puppet and not let the 8,000-year-old azure willow tree be covered in dust, I didn't take a single step outside for an entire 10 years. My cultivation has fallen so much, and my status in the sect is also declining. That's why I was able to get the title of 3 Wonders. How can I have the prestige of an immortal and a devil like you? In order to express your gratitude and make up for the loss of my reputation over the past 10 years, those branches can be my payment of." Lu Ping naturally did not intend to take back the remaining branches from Ji Xian. He was just joking with him earlier. At this moment, In Xianchu also sighed and said, "Let alone an immortal and a devil. Even Zhang Shi has been beaten up like a dead dog by him. He's no longer the immortal of Zhenling, but the immortal of the North Sea." Lu Ping asked curiously, "How did you guys know about this?" In Xianchu said, "The sect and the Azure Sea sect did not intentionally conceal such a huge matter. It has long been known to the entire world." Ji Xian still held a grudge and said, "Damn it, that's true. Back then, the 3 of us were originally the 3 true spirit prodigies, but now I'm the worst off." In Xianchu comforted him. "Now that you've mastered the external avatar technique, you're a grandmaster of the puppet lineage. If this news were to spread, wouldn't your status in the cultivation world be like the sun in the sky?" Ji Xian said rather bleakly, "How can it be that easy? Do you think it's that easy to refine an external avatar? Look at the willow puppet in his hand. It's an 8,000-year-old spirit tree. How good is its quality? In the end, it's condensed to such a size. Even if it can grow along with his cultivation, it's already not bad if it can display half of its power. What's more, it can't even display his innate ability." In Xianchu said, "Half of its power is already extremely high. With senior brother Lu's strength, how many early Dharma adepts can have half of his strength?" Ji Xian nodded and said, "That's true. However, this is only him. If it were anyone else, where would they get an 8,000-year-old spirit tree? It's already good enough to have a 3,000-year-old one, but how much of one's ability can they display? Moreover, Not everyone is like this monster who possesses an explosive level of divine sense cultivation. Otherwise, even using this external avatar would be difficult. Moreover, if the material isn't good, it's extremely easy for it to be damaged during the refining process. Ji Xianxian poured out his grievances and said, "Also, I used 10 years to make this willow puppet. Even if the willow's quality is too good and I wasn't proficient enough before, I'll be able to make one in the next 7 years at most." In Xianchu said, "Oh, so this thing can't be popularized?" Ji Xianxian spread out his palm and said, "The inheritance jade slip that senior brother Lu gave me is extremely miraculous. After refining the jade slip, the contents of this secret technique will be imprinted in my divine sense. Unless I'm willing to strip this part of the contents from my divine sense and pass it to someone else, I won't be able to pass it down verbally. However, if I strip the imprint from my divine sense, I won't remember anything. 7 years for 1, 70 years for 10. Even if I don't do anything for the rest of my life and spend every day making puppets, I'm afraid I won't even be able to make 100 puppets in my lifetime. And this isn't even taking into account the failure rate." When Lu Ping heard the two of them getting further and further away from each other, he hurriedly said, all right. The two of you probably didn't draw the attention of the various sects in the North Sea to the Deep Sea Demon region just to call me out for a chat, right?" Only then did In Xianchu say seriously, "I discovered another secret teleportation array of the Overturned Seas sect, and I'm preparing to leave the East Sea." Lu Ping said curiously, "I've been wondering how you came to the North Sea. You said it was by chance and a freak combination of factors, but I can't figure it out no matter what." As they spoke, the three of them had already turned into streaks of light and flew towards the southern part of the North Sea in the direction that In Xianchu pointed. Along the way, In Xianchu told Lu Ping about the process of him entering the North Sea. After listening to In Xianchu's narration, Lu Ping frowned and fell into deep thought. Ji Xianxian asked curiously, "What's wrong?" Lu Ping said, "So you're saying that you're aiming for the ice attribute mid-grade heaven-grade spirit item in the hands of that Crystal Palace cultivator?" Ji Xianxian nodded and said, "Actually, I already have one ice river heart in my hands, but I think with my cultivation base, I can even fuse 2 of them. All these years, other than killing Xianling's sect disciples in the North Sea, I spent the rest of my time polishing my cultivation base. I want to increase my accumulation. Otherwise, if I focus on cultivation, I'm almost at the peak of the core forging realm by now." Ji Xianxian was indignant again and said, "I've just advanced to the 8th stage core forging realm not long ago, and you're already preparing to fuse the 3rd type of spirit item, and it's even 2 mid-grade heaven-grade spirit items. With my current foundation, I can only fuse 1 mid-grade heaven-grade spirit item in the future at most." At this moment, Lu Ping also suddenly said, "Why don't you try to fuse 3 parts of the Ice River Heart and break through to the 9th stage Golden Core?" A trace of interest appeared on In Xuanchu's face, but he gave up in the end and said, "I'm afraid it'll be extremely difficult. With my cultivation base, I know that I have some confidence in fusing 2 mid-grade heaven-grade spirit items, but if it's 3 parts, even if you have a spirit pill that can increase the chances of fusing with spirit items, I'm afraid it'll be beyond your ability." "What about the spirit forging pill?" In Xianchu was stunned, as if he couldn't believe his ears. Ji Xianxian almost choked, and he hurriedly coughed twice and said, "You have it?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "I have the pill recipe. You guys can collect the spirit herbs yourselves?" Okay. The two of them said in unison. Ever since In Xianchu had used one of the Overturned Seas faction's secret teleporter to return to the North Sea from the East Sea faction, the Overturned Seas faction had strengthened the protection of the secret teleporter. After In Xianchu's secret investigation, he discovered that this teleporter was not only protected by a spell, but also had a late core forging adept overseeing it. There were also 2 mid-core forging adepts and 1 early core forging adept assisting them. With the help of the spell, these people could even endure the attacks of Dharma adepts until reinforcements arrived, or they could use the teleporter to return to the East Sea and cut off the teleporter. It took a lot of effort to find this secret teleporter. The reason why I called you over is because of this spell. As long as we can break this spell, the people inside will be at our mercy. In Xuanchu's cold voice was filled with murderous intent. Lu Ping suddenly raised his hand to stop the two of them and said, "Wait, there's a Dharma adept inside." "What?" In Xianchu was stunned. "That's impossible. How could there be a Dharma adept inside? If there was a Dharma adept overseeing this spell, how confident would you be in breaking it?" Lu Ping did not reply. His divine will carefully tried to penetrate the spell through the cracks in the spell, hoping to obtain some useful information. After a while, Lu Ping let out a sigh of relief and said, "It shouldn't be a guard here. It's a Dharma adept passing by. I don't know if he's coming from the East Sea or leaving through the North Sea." "Then what should we do?" Ji Xianxian rubbed his hair in distress and said, "Why don't we wait for the Dharma adept to leave before coming back?" At this time, a few figures flashed past the spell. In Xuanchu's eyes narrowed and he said, "It's him. It's the Crystal Palace adept who has the Ice River heart. This time, he must be leaving the North Sea. We can't let him escape." Lu Ping thought for a while and suddenly drew a line behind him. 3 miles away, a space door opened and Lu Qiner flew out from the House of Gold. Chen Lian had already understood the structure of the House of Gold. All that was left was to lure him out and kill him. When Lu Ping saw the few people flashing past in the spell, the 3 pure true eyes in his eyes flashed. He already had a general understanding of their abilities. When In Xianchu saw Lu Ping release Lu Qiner, he could roughly guess what Lu Ping was thinking. Hence he said, "That's good too. I originally wanted to kill him for the Ice River heart, but he unintentionally hid in Xianling's sect and failed." Lu Ping thought for a while and opened the House of Gold again. He released Samling as well. In Xianchu and Ji Xuanchuan's eyes widened instantly. In the air above the overturned Sea's sect's secret teleporter, Lu Qiner let out a long cry. A flame shot out from her mouth towards the spell. "Evil creature, you're asking for death." Chapter 970. Then we'll lure him out and kill him. In Xuanchu's murderous words caused Ji Xianxian to feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He said bitterly, "I say, how many people have you killed in the East Sea?" The murderous aura on your body was not accumulated from killing these few Xianling sect disciples, right? Now you can even kill a Dharma adept just like that? Just as Ji Xianxian finished speaking, his eyes widened, and his face was filled with shock. "These are the 3 little snakes that followed you at that time? How could they be the green sea snakes?" If not for the impending battle, Ji Xianxian would definitely have cried out in shock. In Xianchu, on the other hand, quickly calmed down after his shock. He realized that Samling was now at the late core forging stage, so he said, "You have to be careful. The green sea snakes of the East Sea are not easy to deal with. I don't think you can hide this matter forever. Sooner or later, they will find out." Lu Ping smiled bitterly. "Someone already knows. Samling's cultivation is not bad. Stay here for a while. Leave the Dharma adept of the Crystal Palace to me. The rest of you can work together to deal with them. The most important thing is to be quick. Kill all these people before they destroy the teleporter or spread the news." Just as Lu Ping finished speaking, 3 streaks of light flew out from the secret array. A late core forging stage adept and 2 mid-core forging stage adepts from the overturned Sea sect were working together to chase Lu Qiner away. At the same time, a majestic divine consciousness swept out from the array. Obviously, the Dharma adept in the array was also suspecting whether there were still people hiding nearby. However, the 5 elements cloud robe behind Lu Ping, which had turned into a cloak, suddenly expanded. Before the divine consciousness spread out, it had already enveloped Xianxian, Xianchu, Samling, and the rest. This divine sense swept across the sky above Lu Ping and the others, but they did not sense anything. Finally, the divine sense slowly retracted back into the array. Although Lu Qiner's cultivation was at the 8th layer of core forging, with her wind and fire dual cultivation, ordinary cultivators of the same level were no match for her. Furthermore, she had followed Lu Ping for many years and was equipped with magic treasures and spiritual items. Her strength could be considered among the best among cultivators of the same level. Even Samling, who was also at the 8th layer of core forging, might not be able to defeat Lu Qiner in a one-on-one situation. Although the three Crystal Palace cultivators joined hands, they couldn't gain the upper hand against Lu Qiner. Instead, they were suppressed by Lu Qiner and couldn't even lift their heads. An angry roar came from the secret array. The Crystal Palace Dharma adepts who had confirmed that there was no one lying in ambush could not help but make their move. Lu Qiner reacted quickly. In the instant that the Dharma power rose, she flapped her wings and sent the three disciples of the overturned seas sect flying. Then, she circled around and was about to leave. Evil creature, where do you think you're going? Come and die. The Dharma adept took a step forward and appeared in midair. Looking at Lu Qiner, who was flying far away, he smiled condescendingly. A huge net flew out from the hands of the Dharma adept and flew towards Lu Qiner in the distance, wanting to cover her whole body. At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly said, "Now is the time. Do it." As soon as he said this, Lu Ping's entire body suddenly disappeared in front of the few of them. When he reappeared, he was already in front of the Dharma adept. Ji Xianxian, In Xianchu, and Samling suddenly joined forces to attack the array. The Dharma adept's heart sank. Just as he was about to give up on Lu Qiner and rush back to help, he felt the huge net in his hands suddenly loosen. When he turned to look, he just happened to see a ray of light from a sword dissipating behind the huge net. Not far away, there was a ripple in the space, and a person that he could not be more familiar with stepped out. "Lu Tianping, why are you here?" The Dharma adept from the Crystal Palace exclaimed and turned to escape. However, he saw Lu Ping stretch out his hand and push forward casually. The entire space around them began to ripple like waves. Just as the Crystal Palace Dharma adept was about to use his space remarkable power to direct his escape back into the array, he not only discovered Lu Ping and knew that he was no match for this demon, but also saw that one of the few late core forging adepts below was In Xianchu. He had to rush back into the array as soon as possible. Otherwise, this secret teleporting array in the Blessed Sea would definitely be destroyed. However, before he could use his space remarkable power, Lu Ping's blue tide rising palm had already caused the surrounding space to become chaotic. The Crystal Palace Dharma adept did not dare to use his space remarkable power anymore. Lu Qiner took the opportunity to break free from the influence of the Crystal Palace Dharma adept. She folded her wings and landed on the ground. She began to assist In Xianchu, Samling, and the rest in attacking the overturned Seas Clan Dharma adept who was guarding the teleporting array. The Crystal Palace Dharma adept's feet lit up, but his body did not manage to escape. It was unknown when Lu Ping had attracted a cloud of water vapor which condensed into a dark cloud nearby. Countless tiny raindrops, like needles, fell from the sky and coincidentally blocked the path of the Crystal Palace Dharma adept. Lu Ping had predicted the enemy's every move. The Crystal Palace Dharma adept originally had no intention of fighting with Lu Ping. Now, a sliver of despair grew in his heart. This Lu Tianping was definitely doing this on purpose. He clearly could have caught up with him and fought with him in a short period of time, but he still used this method to toy with him. Actually, the Crystal Palace Dharma adept's thoughts were not bad. However, Lu Ping was not toying with him. Instead, he wanted to use him to practice the great remarkable technique that he had just mastered. This was because, when the Dharma adept had made his move to capture Lu Qiner, Lu Ping had already sensed that this Dharma adept from the Crystal Palace was not weak. He had at least already condensed a great natural remarkable power. Since he could not escape and could not beat him in a fight, the Dharma adept suddenly wanted to fight with all his might. He stared at Lu Ping with eyes that were almost spitting fire. A crystal tower rose from the top of his head. Suppress. Lu Ping felt a huge force seeping into his limbs and bones, locking Lu Ping in place. Lu Ping was slightly pleased. Finally, he had shown some of his true abilities. This crystal tower was also extraordinary. It seemed like it was at least a top-notch spirit-nurturing treasure that had been smelted with 9 treasures. The treasures of this Crystal Palace Dharma adept were mostly made of spiritual materials related to crystals. They had refined their own Dharma treasures to be bright and colorful. At least from the outside, they looked very good. The crystal tower grew bigger and bigger in the sky. It was like a pagoda that could suppress the flow of water. This was the great remarkable power of the Crystal Palace. Clear sea and clear river. He wanted the wind and the waves to be calm, but Lu Ping would not let him have his way. Lu Ping opened his arms and suddenly waved them upwards. The surface of the sea behind him suddenly turned into a huge wave that crashed towards the crystal tower that was about to fall from the sky. The Jade Waves technique of the 12 orthodox techniques of the North Sea. The huge crystal tower did not have the slightest bit of resistance under the huge wave. It suddenly somersaulted and fell from the sky. The Dharma adept himself felt as if he had been hit in the chest by a huge hammer. He opened his mouth but could not catch his breath. His face was red and finally, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Only then did he look at the ridiculously young adept in front of him with an expression of extreme fear. This was a great power that he had painstakingly cultivated. It was also the foundation that allowed him to survive among the dozens of early Dharma adepts in the Crystal Palace. He did not expect it to be broken so easily. Perhaps only the direct disciples in the Crystal Palace could be a match for this level of power. However, when he thought about the fact that this adept in front of him could even form a great remarkable power, although this Dharma adept was extremely unfamiliar with the background of this mysterious direct adept, to be able to form a great remarkable power at the early Dharma stage was probably an extremely difficult feat even among the direct adepts. These thoughts only flashed through the Dharma adept's mind. At this moment, he was thinking about how he could escape from Lu Ping's hands with his life. "Brother Lu, are you done over there?" The members of the Overturned Seas sect who were guarding the teleportation portal have all been wiped out by us. Ji Xianxian appeared from the broken portal and shouted at Lu Ping, who was still in midair facing off against the Dharma adept in the Crystal Palace. Seeing the half-smile on Lu Ping's face, the Dharma adept completely calmed down and said, "Lu Tianping, you just wanting Xianchu to escape from the North Sea. You can just use this teleportation portal. Those disciples of the Overturned Seas sect are not official disciples of the Crystal Palace. Even if they die, they die. But the old man is different. If I die here today, can you imagine what will happen to Jinling in the future? The Crystal Palace is an existence that is far beyond your imagination. It is not something that a sect that can dominate the North Sea can afford to offend. Think about how the Fei Ling sect was destroyed all those years ago. Could it be that Jinling's current power is even stronger than the Fei Ling sect? Lu Ping raised his eyebrows. The Crystal Palace was indeed behind the destruction of the Fei Ling sect. He smiled and said, "You want me to let you go?" The Crystal Palace adept's face darkened and he said, "It's not that I want to, but you must let the old man go. Otherwise, Jinling's sect will be destroyed." Hee. The Crystal Palace adept was very nervous. Seeing that Lu Ping only smiled nonchalantly, he immediately said angrily, "What do you mean?" Unknowingly, the water spirit sword had already pierced through the Crystal Palace adept's core space. There was not a single sign of this happening in the surroundings. The Crystal Palace adept looked at Lu Ping, then at the blue water spirit sword in front of his chest. His lips wriggled as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he spat out a mouthful of blood and died. This shapeless sword technique was indeed a must-have technique for killing people without leaving a trace. It was no wonder that some people in Fei Ling sect would rather give up their supreme divine ability and specialize in this unorthodox sword technique that could only reach the level of a supreme divine ability in the end. In terms of its usefulness in actual combat, the shapeless sword technique combined with a good shapeless sword was indeed as powerful as a supreme divine ability. When Lu Ping entered the cave on the deserted island, the corpses of the Overturned Seas sect members had already been disposed of. In Xianchu was working on the teleportation array. When he saw Lu Ping, he said, "I'm afraid there's a problem. When we attacked, this teleportation array disk was protected by a protective array formation. It took a lot of effort to open it. If the teleportation array disk on the other side is also protected by an array formation, and we can't break the protective array disk as soon as we get there, the cultivators guarding there will immediately spread the news. Once our identities are exposed, the sect will really be in danger of being annihilated." Lu Ping thought for a moment, then threw a box to In Xianchu and said, "The heart of the glacier is inside." Then, Lu Ping said, "Lu Qiner, stay here and patrol. If there's any danger, just destroy the teleportation formation. Junior Brother In, activate the formation. The shield won't be able to trap us." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.